not having a background anyway.
Oh yeah, oh
I
yeah.
mean, with the camera being this close, I could actually, if I mount a green screen, like right behind the treadmill.
Oh dang. Um, there's some chat going on. Okay.
Yeah, I got Wiz McNasty in my stream. He's gonna be taking notes, he says.
Taking notes. Oh wow. Um, hopefully he'll share with the class. Or she, or they. Let's see.
They then.
They them. Have you heard about the non-binary miners?
No, I have not heard about
Oh,
them.
they found gold in they them hills. See,
Oh my
I have
god.
the stand-up brick wall background. It has to, have to pull a couple out,
Oh wait, hold on. I just realized that I could have done this.
Oh God. See, oh, this is gonna be a wonderful, wonderful event. I see it already.
You can somewhat see the soundboard on my side.
Hmm.
You'll have that one heckler in the background being like this.
Boo. Oh yeah.
I ripped that from Rick and Morty.
That's a pretty good one. Oh my God, yeah, I
Feel free to use any of them.
Excuse me.
Just avoid the one that says "dick" in three way.
Yeah, so I purposefully did not. We do have
Or
this
you
one from
do
my
it. I don't care.
Discord. The old Team Fortress 2.
Oh my god.
Oh, see, Sad Trombone, a classic. Cool. Well, I think I am streaming on. Oh yeah, I am streaming on everything. Nice.
How
Got
many
it.
streaming platforms you doing?
Just YouTube and Twitch. And
Uh,
smoke signals to nearby neighbors in my neighborhood. No, that's not a streaming platform. That was.
oh,
If I talk loud enough, I can stream to my neighbors that share a wall with us too.
you got like a house to house, or
We're
is
in a
it apartment?
quadplex, so there's like 4 separate
Ooh.
houses, which is fine. I mean, the walls are pretty thick, but they have like the people below us and the people to our right both have kids.
Oh, so it's like a two-story duplex.
Yeah, sort of a thing. So
Oof.
it's essentially if you took a building and like had the top and bottom floor just split down the middle and then like split it on the yeah, it's but it's also like they're shared to get like we have a shared laundry room area with like red shag carpet that looks like it's from The Shining.
Ugh.
Like whenever I walk down it, it looks like there's gonna be like those two just ghostly sisters at the end and I'll just die.
Play with us.
Yeah, no. Terrifying, by the way, Tank.
What? Oh, that voice?
Oh yes. Oh yes. So I'm just gonna start some B-roll ashes in the background.
B-roll
Just mute
ads.
it. Some Node
Would have been
Wars.
embarrassing.
There we go.
Yeah.
Cool.
I wish they would put out the audio file for their live streams because I love like that the drum roll right before all their live streams. But I cannot find it anywhere.
Oh, you mean the yeah, that the stuff that they're playing before it all happens. You'd have to go to like their Twitch stream, I think, and try to just rip it from there.
Copy and paste. YouTube to MP3.
Oh, I mean, honestly, there's some pretty good software where you can just essentially paste a channel and or paste a video and throw it in. Oh, Wizzy
uh,
McNasty, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Oh yeah, what were you guys talking about before I dropped in? I'm sure we can talk about some stuff,
uh,
but I saw Cleric or something.
um, we were talking about we were watching Zillion's recent video, posted
Mhm.
like a 2 hour video of he was talking with his chat, and then they said something about like I would gladly pay $50 a month if there was no cash up.
I saw a
And
similar like this might be a good topic to start on. Like I saw I
okay,
was do you ever listen to Lore Forged at all?
I love listening to Pee Wee Herman. That's what I call Sonny.
Oh yeah, no, the great community. Love their Discord
Oh
too.
yeah.
Some fun people in there. Um, oh yeah, no, I had talked to you about this. Like you were
Mhm.
invited to their guild essentially, and you're kind of still weighing. But they had a
Yeah.
really good live stream where they were talking about monetization models, and in it, Sonny, Mr. Pee-wee himself, was actually said that his like he what he would prefer is it was interesting. Zero cash shop but like a WoW token. And I might be a little biased, but I am just oh, I'm not showing up in the Ashes category. Oh, I'm in the BattleBit category. You're right.
Yeah,
That would do it. Oh no,
yeah. I
I'm in
tried
the Ashes
looking for you on
category.
my account. Yeah, no, I just see that one Russian guy that's constantly playing old
Oh my god, yeah.
streams.
The the old stream. Let me just look up Ashes of
Jack his
Creation
streams.
categories. Ashes of Creation. Oh, I see you. I don't see me though. What the heck? Let
I
me.
see. I see you on my stream.
Yeah, no, I see. Oh, I'm trying to make this as confusing as possible. Oh my god. How do I? So it says I'm live. It says Ashes of Creation, but it must be the wrong stream. Just having a little technical difficulties. Thanks for calling that out, by the way. Wizzy. How the hell do I
Are we
manage
like
stream?
gonna do it?
Server meshing. Yeah, okay. It says
Some
Ashes of
people are
Creation. It might just
dumb.
take a second.
I'm just playing sound bits to mock you.
Oh, you've. Oh, that's perfect.
What was it? Beavis and Butthead.
Some people are dumb.
Some people are dumb. Yeah, I think that is it.
Uh,
I'm assuming it'll probably just pull up in a second.
We want to make sure you're on there. You get that. Like, yeah.
It might just take a second.
Yeah,
I'll check
no.
in another couple minutes. It's fine. They can see my beautiful face on your stream. So
You guys are doing it wrong.
you're not wrong. Oh man, I see where this is going.
Enough them.
No, but
I'll be done with them.
I might be biased, but and I mean for anybody who might not know what the WoW token system is, essentially what you can do is in World of Warcraft Classic and in retail World of Warcraft and games like old school RuneScape, you can purchase with real money a token that you can sell in the game for game time. So essentially, it's a way for people to essentially, if you want to, you could spend the WoW gold you made in the game to buy a WoW token from somebody else, and that'll give you 14 days playtime. Or you can buy the 14-day playtime WoW token from Blizzard themselves for some money, and then immediately from there sell it to somebody else. It's essentially like an okay or like a sanctioned way for you to buy gold, because you can just buy a WoW token, sell it to somebody for gold. And I'll let you get into it in just a second. I don't want to say quickly with my spiel. I hate that. I hate that system. Some games work really well with it. RuneScape, for example. They already have it established that this is in their system. You can play the Iron Man mode if you want to get away from it. That's what I do. But in World of Warcraft, I mean, in a game like Ashes, where your player power, everything's sellable. There's no soulbound items. If you can buy gold, if you can buy gold in Ashes, you can essentially just pay to get power, which to me doesn't sit right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I didn't know that they kept doing where you can sell it to other players. I thought they changed it to where you could just use your in-game gold to buy a month. I thought that's what you're going with. I remember what you were talking about though. But
Oh, is
I
it different
thought
now?
that,
My bad. Sorry.
no. I mean, it's been a while since I played, and I never really focused on that because there was so much work you had to do. Like you had to put in a full-time job's
Yeah.
worth of gold grinding just for a month free to play. And I mean, if you're a gold farmer or if you're a crafter that can bank off the auction house, good for you. But yeah, I wouldn't want something like that in this game.
And I mean,
I don't even know how they would do it.
I can totally get where Sunny's coming from, because Sunny, like, from my understanding at least, and I don't want to put words in his mouth or anything like that, but he seems very focused on kind of role play and like lore, and like his wheelhouse isn't really being like the most high tier competitive PvP or in PvE. He's there to, provide a service to people, enjoy and like accomplish things as a guild. And, in that case, having purchasable power is not something that really, in the Venn diagram of things that affect each other, his world might be a bit over here, and the token might be over here. But yeah, and for him, he hates bots. He hates bots more than he hates the token. And so it's a really good way to get rid of bots, but I'm hoping that there's other ways to eliminate bots without having to resort to having players be able to buy this token.
We talked about it was it Monday? Yeah, it was Monday. We talked about it with the whole of like most of the nodes or most of the gatherables are going to be randomized. They're never going to spawn in the same place.
Yeah.
I think that's going to get rid of a whole bunch of gather bots,
Oh,
which
definitely.
is generally the only bots that I can see left are going to be people who run programs like you played New World, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember the Boar Farm?
I'm not sure I ever encountered the boar farm, but I kind of see where you're going.
So there was this I don't remember. I think it was to the far south right, like it was like one of the coastal, and there was like this boar camp. It was just like a camp that was overrun with boars, and they had an insane spawn rate that for longest time, and people were just there spamming AoE abilities to level up their weapons. And there was so many people in there that were just spamming F to skin all the boars.
Oh.
And it got to a point where it was such a heavily contested PvP zone because people would just kill bots so much that it was hilarious.
I mean, that sounds kind of boring, wouldn't you say?
I mean, for
Boring?
the
Huh?
PvPers,
Huh? No, I just wanted to make a horrible pun. But yeah, no, that checks out. You I'll be here all night,
I'll,
folks.
I'll have that already.
That's a pretty good one. You can even bind it to a hotkey, I think. It's get really out of hand real quick. But yeah, so in that case, I mean, there were the bots, and then there were the people who were actually just fully looting things from the bots, like actual players that were benefiting too, right?
Mhm.
And
And
this
I
sounds
don't.
very similar to something in classic WoW. There would be hunter bots. Essentially, you'd have people who would have a macro tab target, tab target, tab target till they find something, and then
Oh, yeah.
have a hunter that would just set your pet at it, and you'd shoot at it, and then you'd run up to it and you'd loot it essentially. And they got pretty good at what they were doing. They do things like feign death and try to run away if they're being attacked, and so I'm hoping that they're able, Intrepid with all the data they have is able to suss out these bots.
I mean, I don't think bots are going to be an issue. Honestly, the way they have and the systems that they have in place to kind of counteract bots,
Hey
I
there,
think it's going to
Azura.
be very rare we even see
Welcome
bots.
to
I
the
think
chat.
we would see more hackers than we would bots, in
Okay.
my opinion.
Yeah.
Uh,
You saw that video I sent to you that the Copian Clinic made on the data, right?
yeah,
Actually,
I love that video. Actually,
I love it
I watched
too.
that twice.
And for anybody who isn't aware, Copium Clinic is a fantastic Ash's YouTube and streamer. I don't think he streamed as much, but definitely good videos. Check him out if you have the chance. But in the video, he kind of talks about how they're gathering so much data that they're hoping XX Boarslayer 62XX, like that they can see that he's just like, huh, this guy is 20 hours a day killing boars. This seems a little suspicious. And where I'm hoping Ashes can step in where other MMOs don't is like, it sounds like Ashes wants to really put a lot of emphasis into having player mods, not player mods. Sorry, I mean, GMs, like actual GMs that will police the world. Because I can't tell you how many times, like in Classic WoW, as an example again, if you're outside of a dungeon, you can literally sit there and count the bots as they go in and out of the instance. And you're like, all it would take is a single GM to sit here for 5 minutes, and you would just you'd be able to ban hundreds of bots. Like it kind of blows my mind a little bit.
I'm going back onto classic WoW because if you ever played original WoW, like even the new classic WoW that they have now is still different from
Oh yeah,
the
vanilla.
original 2004. I really hope that Steven kind of goes in that direction with every server having their own unique GM. Because I remember GMs would spawn like world bosses right outside of major cities just because they were having fun with the community.
Oh yeah.
And I think Planendorf, Dreg, Kine, they could do something like that, like kind of like spawn a monster coin event. Hey, you built the first metropolis. Here's a horde of zombies. Everyone defend it. No real risk, just having fun.
especially in Alpha
with
2,
the
where
system.
like, the stakes aren't very
Oh yeah,
high, I like it because, whenever Intrepid talks about their hiring process, essentially they'll be talking about, oh yeah, we really want to make sure people like play MMOs. We want to know that people like understand and have engaged in the content they're making. And so that gives me at least a little bit of hope that, these same people are what they're going to be looking for in GMs. People who might be used to the old days where, if you were bad, you got teleported to GM Island and you had to sit in timeout for an hour, like these are things that,
uh,
that is a lot more, that's a lot more healthy than banning somebody in some ways. Because sometimes all you need to do is give somebody a slap on the wrist and, have them
yeah.
know that they're being looked at.
Well,
Yeah, Azrael,
sorry, my,
welcome.
my
Are
dog
you
barked.
following Ashes as well? But yeah, go ahead.
No, my dog was coughing. I was just making sure she was okay.
Oh no.
Yeah, she just drinks water too fast. Yeah, I really hope that they do that with,
Oh, sounds
because
good.
I mean,
Thanks for
yeah,
joining.
like that there's always a presence. I mean, I've been griefed, and I've made a report to like Stranglethorn Vale was like notorious for rogues, hunters, just a grief low level players because it's right by higher level areas.
Skill issue.
And
Skill issue.
Sorry, no. I get what you're saying. Yeah, go ahead.
that damage amp, it was that damage. Um, but yeah, like he's like they actually helped me. Like, hey, I can't get out of Stranglethorn because I keep getting ganked. Like they're sitting at the res area too. It's like, what do I do? And like he literally just like he was like, okay, respawn and I'll take care of him. And he put like a invulnerability bubble on me.
Okay.
And then the guy tried to kill me, and he was like, he had rooted him, like he couldn't move, and he was like, "You've broken the law. Come with me." And I just saw them both disappear, and then the bubble disappeared, and I mean, I was tense. I was like, "What the hell?" Kind of happened,
Like, am I
and
next?
then he whispered to me like, "All right, don't worry." The what he's I'm trying to remember what he says. Been 20 years, but like the criminal has been taken away. Go back to playing the game. Enjoy yourself. Have a nice day. And that was just like the only real interaction I've had with guild or GMs, and it was just hilarious to watch that they actually took care of their community. Like every server had its own community in that sense.
Yeah. It'll be interesting because that's something that on a small scale can mean a lot. Like you remember this years later as a player of an MMO. It's like this is something that when I was getting incessantly ganked, and this isn't a non-corruption style game. I'm just getting ganked. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm this low-level player. I totally see how that's a good experience for you as a kid. I wonder how they're going to
Yeah.
handle it in Ashes, because in Ashes the idea would be if this person keeps ganking you and you stay green, eventually internal systems like the bounty hunter system will start getting on people.
Right.
So
They're
I
going to get weaker and weaker the more they do that too.
exactly. We have people in chat kind of talking about when they got into Ashes. So when did you watch the Lazy Peon video, Tank?
I don't think I ever watched the Lazy Peon video.
Oh,
Honestly.
you were into Ashes like before the Lazy Peon video and whatnot, huh?
I don't know about before. It was about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more than 2 years ago.
Well, somebody who's
And I
aware
was
of
just
Pantheon
working.
probably was aware of this too, is my thought.
Oh, nah. Pantheon, I just kind of like stumbled upon. I don't
Mhm.
know what video, but Ashes was told to me by a coworker who's not even interested in the game anymore. Funny enough,
Oh yeah.
but he was like, he knew I liked MMOs, and he was telling me like, oh yeah, there's gonna be this new MMO. It's gonna have 64 classes. I'm like, what's it called? He's like, Ashes of Creation. I'm like, okay, I'll have to give it a look. And here I am.
Here you are. On me, one of my buddies, I played a lot of PlanetSide 2. Like between the times of 2013 to 2020, that was like my main game for a lot of it. And one of my buddies at work who also played PlanetSide 2 was like, "Yo, have you heard of this? Have you seen this Lazy Peon video about this new game?" Like, no. So I checked it out, and I would love to see the pie chart of who was introduced by Lazy Peon and who like was not, because whenever I talk to somebody, they're a lot of the time just like, "Oh yeah, I saw this video." It's like, what was the Zug Zug guy from? Oh, okay, the Lazy Peon, yeah, from World of Warcraft.
Zug zug.
Zug Zug, more work. Like,
Eat not the kind of orc.
I do have a question, and it's a very, very important question.
Oh,
Uh-huh. Do
hope so.
you think that when you click on an NPC multiple times in Ashes of Creation, there should be some NPCs with Easter eggs like that?
Yeah, I would love Easter eggs. I would love some Easter eggs. I mean, they already have the sandal Easter egg. But yeah, I would love if they had like weird Easter eggs. Kind of like it was so fun and WoW going around the world and you just find these random Easter eggs.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when Burning Crusade came out, and I still remember exactly where it is. And I went and visited to see if it was still there in the remastered version. And it was of a genie that you have to click a lamp, and it's basically Robin Williams. Like,
Oh.
I think they changed their names so it's not copyright.
So they don't get
but he
sued by
says, like,
Disney.
all this power and then it had like references to different movies, like toys scattered around his little area.
That's
I thought that
fantastic.
was hilarious.
I also remember in where was it? Like Hellfire Peninsula, the Alliance Town.
Mhm.
You could click on the gravestones, and they were all like fart jokes or something. This is 2020. This is 2004, like 2005 Blizzard or whatever we're talking about here. No,
Oh.
I also would love to see stuff like that, and I believe there is going to be stuff like that. Like, with the amount of just skullduggery and ridiculousness. I don't know. I think the first person in 2020 used skullduggery as a word, but the ridiculousness you'll see in the live streams of just Steven and the devs riffing off each other and like them playing pranks and surprising Steven with sandals. Like, there's going to be a non-negligible amount of sandals. I hope that people are okay with that.
I'm probably gonna get some shit talk about this, but I don't know what the sandal thing is. I just imagine like maybe he just wore sandals to work all the time and
He
people just
did.
make fun of him.
That is the thing. He wore sandals into the office. So I have a quick pivot here. Unless you had something else you wanted to add about this.
No, not particularly. I mean,
Somebody in the
I
chat
can talk
asked a
about the
question
persons.
essentially,
Okay, ask me a question.
or just us essentially.
Oh,
So
okay.
this could perhaps be our next topic if you're okay with it.
Hmm?
So Azaro says, or Azaro, however I should pronounce it, I will. Says, do you think NPCs should have nameplates above them when you click on them, or only tooltips of your health or of their health? Well, you're thinking I could riff a little bit. So I'll say what I would prefer, and I'll say what I think is going to happen. Personally,
Okay.
in like when I'm playing any sort of MMO, I like to, if I'm targeting somebody, I want to see their nameplate above their head. If I'm in a party with somebody, I kind of want, or like if I'm a healer, I like visually seeing the nameplate over their head. Like I would always download that add-on where I could hover over somebody and press a heal and not even need to click on them. And that would work. I think they're gonna let you choose. They make it sound like they want, like, their goal is to make their UI as scalable and tunable that you can change what you want. Like, I know a thing that Steven gets asked in the content I'm playing right now. I'm playing the Big War, where he can see the enemy's health bars over their heads, but he can't see his friendly health bars. He said that you can change that. You can see as many health bars as you do or do not want. I bet you're going to be able to change the radius of health bars. That's what I'm hoping for. I hope that it's scalable. How about you? Oh, you're muted, by the way.
No, I had someone was talking in chat, so I didn't want to stop you.
Oh, fair,
so
fair. Good question.
But as terms of nameplates, I think, yeah, if you're targeting them, but I think there should be like an option. Like I think it's normally like V where you can toggle all of them on or toggle them off unless you're for NPCs, because especially like if you don't know where someone's at, having that nameplate is really helpful in town. Unless they have, the exclamation point or whatever.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like an NPC, you're saying.
Yeah, I mean NPCs I generally have them turned off unless I need to find somebody and it's like a quest where you have to go around and just look for them. They don't have a marker on them.
I have noticed something actually as I'm watching this content. It looks like right now what they actually I can see I'm watching Dread's perspective and I can see kind of he has friendly nameplates on. but only enemy nameplates within a certain distance. And so it looks like they already have a distance setting. Um, I also love tooltips.
That's
I
not
love
bad.
being able to hover over somebody and like see information about them. I think it's going to be really important that, because there is transmog in this game, tooltips I would love to be able to see over everybody without even having to click on them is what type of armor they're wearing. They mentioned they're
I
going to show
agree.
you heavy, medium, light. I'd love to see, or maybe a bar of if they have a mixture. It's like, are they in the light spectrum, medium, or heavy? Like,
See, I think they should have an option for enemies.
mhm,
Like if you're fighting somebody, it shows, or basically, like I would rather see everyone's true armor unless we're in a party,
mhm. That makes sense.
because I mean it's like
All
I
right, so you
understand.
mean
Yeah,
not see
you
their
want to show
transmog?
off. Yeah, right. I don't want to see their transmog unless I'm in the party with them,
Mhm.
and because it's such a strategic. I mean, it is definitely a not deployment. I'm trying to think of the term. Deceitfulness. Goddamn,
Deceit.
I'm
Okay,
not
okay,
good with
yeah, yeah.
words.
Unless
It's
they're
very
diseased, I
deceitful.
don't want to see anything about them.
It's very deceitful, and something like that is a huge thing that you need to know when you go into one-on-one combat. Because if I have plate armor, but I have a claw cosmetic, and you're a mage, you're gonna see me. You're like, he has plate armor. I can easily kill him. But then you go to hit me, and I'm like, nope, I got cloth armor under this shit.
Well, I would highly doubt that they're gonna let you disable the cosmetic armor across the board. I think they're always gonna have you see cosmetic armor. I just hope that it's very easy to tell because I don't want to have to be wailing on some dude who looks like he's wearing, a bikini and realize that he's wearing full plate
Final
armor.
Fantasy.
Oh, by the way, Wizzy asks if we had access to Alpha 2. My understanding is you have
Oh yeah,
access to Alpha 2. I do as well. So yeah, we both have
yeah.
access.
Me and my wife, we both have access.
Oh, nice.
uh, I made sure to get her one before. I was waiting for the right cosmetic because I'm like, I bought mine. I think it was like during the Tower Carfin
Mhm.
showcase with the red armor. I think it was like zombie like armor that I got mine, and then I'm trying to remember hers. I think it was something like spring because I remember a lot of flowers and it being very green.
Yeah.
I have to go onto her account and see what it's on there, but I wanted to, give her a cosmetic that she will like to have on her character or her, freehold, her caravan.
Mhm.
But she probably won't even touch caravans. She's not that. She'll just be making weird ass horses.
We
My Little
making weird
Pony,
ass horses. I think that's a new profession. I like it.
animal, animal husbandry, trying to create, the prettiest horse.
What I
That's
did a lot
one
of in
thing that
Black
she
Desert
wants to.
Online. It's
Oh my, I
husband.
hated that so much in that game.
I know. I loved finding all those horse. Like I knew some of the secret spots where horses would spawn before they were all over the internet, and so I just always go to those spots and check out for the horses and try and catch them.
You're
Um,
the reason why I couldn't find any.
yeah, right. At least for the first first month or two, I think. Then I dropped off. But yeah, Wizzy McNasty says that they quit watching the monthly live streams after the fighter showcase, and they're kind of surprised at how much better the combat looks in Ashes right now. What are your thoughts? Are you feeling better and better about combat? Seeing
From going from the tank showcase to the fighter, I love the split body movement.
Mhm,
I love the one thing I love is especially with the casters is that you can move around while you're fighting. And the one reason why I like it is because you can, even though you move slowly, you can still turn pretty fast. So you can pretend like you're about to shoot like your cone of cold in one direction, but flip around and shoot the guy behind you. I really like that kind of aspect of it. It seems very fluid, especially with casters, because that's one thing that turned me off from casting in World of Warcraft was, you're running away, Frost Nova, run away, and you just have to stand there and cast. And that's why I kind of got more into tanks and melee because you can kind of move around and constantly
mhm.
attack.
A lot of my previous MMO experience when I really like the first MMO I really rated and like went hard into was WildStar. And well, I thought the Telegraph stuff was interesting. I don't really like telegraph stuff as much. I realized later. What I realized is I liked having freedom in my movement and having to aim skills. That's to me that was the good part about telegraphs. When you put a lot of it into PvP, it just looks like mush. You can't tell what's going on. And so I hope they
Okay,
don't
Guild
have
Wars.
telegraphs. I hope they use the spells themselves to kind of delineate where they're going. But that split body feeling is like when I was watching the auto attacks of the fighter and how it's just this. Actually, no, when they were showing the split body weapons and they were showing the dagger versus the greatsword, I'm like, this looks like auto attacks in WildStar, which is something I liked. I liked how you had to aim yourself and you were cleaving all the enemies in it or up to a certain amount of enemies.
I love that all melee weapons cleave. I love that. It's a very good immersion too. One thing I kind of hope for is that like most weapons are going to cleave because of the swipes, the slashes. But I hope that like when they do lances and spears, they get more unique instead of them doing a sweep and cleaving. They're going to be more piercing, and like you would hit people behind, like have a pretty good range of being able to go through enemies.
Mm-hmm. And it already sounds like they have some pretty technical things they can do with that too. Like having tanks have like a shield ability that stops things from going past. I don't see what's stopping them from having like another ability where you could stop a cleave from going behind you if you're like in the front lines, because that could be super helpful as well. Like
That could be just a shield passive in
yeah,
itself.
exactly.
Instead
Also,
of a
Wizzy,
tank.
yes, WildStar was fantastic. Rest in peace. Well, it was fantastic. I didn't play in the free to play, but it kind of went downhill a bit. From what I heard.
Yeah,
Miss it.
I tried getting into that way too late.
Oh yeah. See, when it came out, when I played it.
I saw it, and I think I started playing Guild Wars at the time,
Mhm.
or I was really into SWTOR, and then I'm like, okay, let me give it a shot, and then it was just like dead. There's no one there. But kind of going back to the weapons, how do you feel about the weapon instead of being auto attacks, the weapon combo system?
I love it. It is very reminiscent to me of what you would maybe see if have you played many Souls-like games at all? Dark Souls, or have you?
Um, Not by choice. I played it with a friend. The only one I played was Elden Ring, and
Mhm.
I beat like 3 bosses, and that was enough for me. The stress.
Oh yeah. Actually, it seems to me kind of like the like bits of the Black. I played Valkyrie and Black Desert Online. So it was a lot of moving using your
So did I.
abilities. I not as big of a fan of having to use your auto attacks to move, but I think it maintains like what you're talking about where you have different weapon combos. It maintains the things I like the most about Black Desert's system. Where in Ashes, you can use abilities to move, but you're not constantly auto attacking to the left and right to try and move yourself.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yep.
Was it like W left click does this ability,
Yep.
then you follow with a shift E and then a basic E. That it was so confusing that like when you first got into it, if you've never used the combo systems like that.
I'm gonna take your question and kind of expand it a little bit to like my view
Okay.
on weapons and whatnot in games. I'm the sort of person that when I play a class, or whether I'm playing like a single player game, whether I'm playing any game with a combat system, I like feeling like I can have mastery of that system. Whether I'm playing an FPS and learning new guns, whether I'm playing an MMO and learning how to time my cooldowns with abilities, whether I'm like even playing top down MOBA and I need to know, or Hades or something, and I'm trying different weapons and whatnot. Like I like feeling myself. I like when each weapon has a different feel and that I can tangibly feel that each weapon feels different. And so I really like the combo system or what's it called? The weapon combo system.
Mhm.
I really enjoy that system because to me, that means I'll be able to have a lot of skill expression. I'll feel better at playing the game. I'll be able to look at somebody just starting swinging their sword, and somebody who just equipped a great sword, and somebody who's been using a great sword for like 40 hours, and just see by the way they play that one of them is more experienced than the other. It seems like it's not going to just be holding down the button with all the different effects that
Right.
different moves in your combos have. It's like maybe the best thing I need to do in this situation is only hit him 3 out of 5 times, because that means that I have this proc that happened and I can hit my spell right afterward. So, sorry, that was making a short answer long, but I do
No, that's
like the
fine.
weapon combo
That's the whole point of
system.
this.
How about you?
I really like I do like the combo system. One thing that kind of like piques the way they word some of the stuff, like because you can see the great sword, the bow, well, somewhat of the bow. The bow is pretty basic on the website, and then the wand is like the most in depth.
I was
But
thinking of the
like
wand the whole time with that combo system.
the wand has been like the most unique in itself so far, and like the one thing that kind of gets me curious is the combo extenders, right?
Mhm.
So, like for example, if you like, I'm looking at the site right now, and
Mhm.
it says like if you go Swordmaster Endurance, when you uh, do a finisher proc and extended finisher procs, they give you a 25% chance to recover 2 to 4% of your max health.
Mhm.
Now, does that mean your original like if great swords have 3 hit combos, does the third hit and then the new fourth hit both have a chance to proc?
I mean, that makes
That's
sense.
like because it says finisher and extended finishers.
I wonder
So,
what they're gonna make the downside to that be. Because in Dark Souls, that sort of combat, even if you didn't enjoy the game, it's like, actually, especially if you didn't enjoy the game, that moment where you're like, damn it, I shouldn't have pressed heavy attack again. Now I'm screwed because it takes 12 business days to swing my sword. It's like, and so, that's some risk versus reward. I wonder how they're going to add risk versus reward to finishers, because if there's a fourth and a fifth part of your extended combo that's really powerful, are they going to make it maybe take a little bit longer to do both those swings? I wonder what they're going to do with it. Are they going to make them a little bit weaker to compensate for the fact that they have this added effect? Like, I don't know.
well, one thing I really hope that they try to prevent is I hate and from BDO was always annoying was animation canceling.
Yep.
And I like so like say if I'm in the middle of my fourth attack, right, and you're about to cast something, I'm like, oh crap, I need to get out of here or he's gonna screw me over, and I dodge roll. I'm okay with canceling it and dodging out, but what I'm not okay with hitting the dodge at the right time and my ability still going off. I think that's completely unfair.
Okay.
Or like just completely locking your character down. You're committed to that fourth strike.
That's a good
And
point.
I think that would be a fair I think either canceling the attack altogether or committing. And I
Mhm.
think committing is actually a bigger deal than because it would basically make you every action you even basic auto attacks. You need to know, okay, this is going to take me 2.5 seconds to actually, you know, hit him. Am I going to be in a bad position? That's
Yeah, and
that's kind of how it rolls in my mind.
well, the fact that you can move and pretty much cast any ability, I think helps add that, it would feel it sometimes feels very bad when you're rooted in place. You're
Oh,
casting like, imagine you're casting like a pyroblast in WoW and you can't
mhm.
leave the animation for 10 seconds. It's like
Oh my,
that's an extreme case. It's
yeah,
like,
that's extreme.
of course you can stop casting it, but imagine, like, if you committed to a 10-second pyroblast and you had to sit there. I think they make it a bit like they could go multiple ways with this, but I think they make it a bit more palatable as a player by letting you move at least a little bit, because you're committing. You're moving at
Yeah,
like 30% speed, but at least you feel
I
like you
do
have
like
some
that.
agency. At least you feel like you can move.
I mean, and if you're able to dodge out of the animation, I think that's pretty cool. Just as long as if you choose to dodge, you are sacrificing all the time your character wound up the
Mhm.
attack.
Unless you did
Um,
like the Kamehameha like thing where that's over time. Like, what do you think about
um,
canceling like held abilities like that? Like, if you're casting that big beam ability that damages, incrementally over and over again.
the electric one that Steven did in the Node
Yeah,
Wars.
like dodging out of that to me kind of makes sense. Um,
Yeah,
I hope that they have dodging be a resource that has to come back, or I think they have
I
like,
think they said it's gonna be stamina.
yeah,
They're
stamina.
gonna
They
have a
use stamina.
stamina.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know if they had the stamina system built in because I saw people like dodging like constantly around,
Mhm.
and it didn't seem like it hindered them much. Um, It does say on the wiki that heavy armor is less mobile than light armor. So I'm wondering if it's kind of like an Elden or a Souls-like game where the heavier you are, you just or New World did it too, where it's just like a sidestep. But if you have light armor, you do like a full-on 10-foot roll.
Do you have iframes when you dodge right now in Ashes?
I've never played Ashes, so I don't know.
I mean, at least from what you've seen, because I've seen people dodge, I think. Or maybe not.
I
Maybe I haven't seen people dodge in this.
I haven't actually paid attention if anyone's actually dodged and been hit,
Yeah,
whether it be the receiver or the dealer.
because I kind of like iframes and dodging. Maybe I'm part of a minority, but
No, I agree. I agree.
like, if I am sacrificing my damage output and using my stamina, and I see your pyroblast, with a tab target pyroblast just slowly going towards me, if I can dodge at the right time, perhaps I could dodge it. I don't know.
Agree.
It might not make
I think
sense
that
though.
is awesome. No, I think if if you dodge at the right time in my power blast, I think it should fully miss or maybe glance.
Mhm.
Depending on what the ability is. Um, yeah, I love the whole dodge and based on the way. I mean, I'm gonna be wearing mostly either heavy armor or light armor, depending on who I'm fighting.
Yeah.
But uh, I think dodges should have iframes
At least
or at
mitigate
least
it.
a damage reduction.
Yeah,
Yeah, at least
yeah.
some mitigation
No, and that
on
that makes
top of
sense.
whatever you're wearing.
Yeah,
Um,
and because if you've put the points into going down the neutral tree or whatever, and you're getting really good at dodging,
mhm.
then you're taking it away from. My understanding is like if you put points in the neutral tree, then you are, not being able to put points somewhere else or something like. I forget where Steven was talking about.
We haven't really seen much of the universal. Are you talking about like the
Yeah,
universal tree?
besides the
Yeah, we haven't
very
really seen
early
much
prototype.
where it was just like you got health, you got
Mhm.
mana, you got movement speed. Like it's all just that was also when they didn't have skill trees. It was just like you get these abilities, you get Fireball stage 1, upgraded to stage 2, upgraded to stage 3, and that's kind of what you had in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I mean, I love a lot of the abilities that they have with the combo systems. Like Second Strike, um, I think that is like an amazing ability to just have, like to basically do a weapon combo, and then basically you have a double charge of an ability. Especially with casters, like if you can do that on wands, staffs, and then like say you have Second Strike where your next ability does you shoot it twice. So you get the Second Strike buff, and then you charge up your Pyroblast, and you just have 2 Pyroblasts coming in your face. I think is hilarious just to watch that double hit right there.
Did you happen to play Presence of Mind Fire Mages? Is that what I'm getting? You palm pyro and
Oh,
everybody.
I Palm Pyro, yep.
um,
See, the way I did it is I would charge up I don't know if it was well known to that, but I would charge up my Pyroblast first, then pop Presence of Mind, and then cast it again.
mhm.
So it was literally 2 Pyroblasts back to back. That's how I did it when I was playing my mage.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. I mean, I do like the fact that the just your auto attacks with your weapons aren't just a filler. Like they're a filler between abilities, but then they can also augment it. Like I
Right.
love the idea of having a wand as a healer and like weaving in some wand hits to decrease my next spells mana cost or something. It's like I played a lot of in Burning Crusade and Lich King. I played a lot of pally healer. So essentially, a lot of it was like you'd spam Flash of Light, and then you'd get a proc due to one of your trinkets that would make your next big heal. Either take less time, crit a lot more, cost a lot less. And so, I'm kind of in my mind, instead of spamming your basic heal all the time, you might be weaving a wand and trying to get a proc, or you know,
I mean, I think I mean,
it's engaging.
there's some of these like procs that you can get that just like I would like gladly because the way I see because all of them have cooldowns, which I
Yeah.
love because it makes it feel more like League of Legends in a sense,
Hmm.
where you auto attack, yaw attack. I've seen players, especially because I'm in a low elo, where they would just spam all their abilities, and then they're
done.
waiting.
Yeah.
But I see it as, how you play it, right?
Mhm.
If I'm versing a ranger, I know rangers generally have that backflip that they can do. So I'm going to try to get close to him as possible without using my pull. And then if I can get close to him and then force him to do his backflip, then I yank him back. And then I put a wall down and I'm like, you stuck with me now.
That wall is gonna
Yeah.
cause some nightmares. Every
The,
squishy.
the fact that tanks have a pull and then basically a wall that you can't walk through is such a was it a scorpion? Just get over here
Get
and
over here.
just trap him like you are stuck with us. I don't know if you noticed, but like in the start when they started that war, I don't know if it was Dread, but as soon as they all flagged up, a warrior had charged in to the
And
group
walled.
of Steven's group, and then he got walled in. And I'm like, that is just hilarious. And
Wizzy
I
in the
think
chat says that poll in Alpha 1 was a plague. Did you play Alpha 1, Wizzy? Were you part of the testers? That sounds
oh, lucky bastard.
I know, right? That does sound like a plague, because what's interesting with tanks is like they are giving them control. That seems to be what they're doing. It's like, you're going to be able to do some damage, but you control the battlefield, which I find, nothing feels more badass than, enabling, to me at least. I love the idea of like, you're not a healer, you're a support. You're not a tank, you're a support. Or you are, but I mean, like, supporting is something that all these classes can do very well.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, Wizzy was an Alpha 1, so he was on the front lines
you
of, I'm
lucky
sure,
bastard.
no bugs whatsoever.
No. As my SWTOR guild would always say, there's no bugs in this game, it's just hidden features.
Yeah.
that was our motto. Every time, like, no matter what we did, there's always bugs.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, the pull and then a wall to stop them from moving is just gonna be a deadly combo. And coming from being a heavily support main in League of Legends, I think tanks having the most CC makes so much sense. Because yeah, you don't do the much damage, but you make the plays. And
Mhm.
it is your DPS's jobs to finish them. Like you start it and they have to commit to it.
Well, and I don't think it's a mistake. Oh, go ahead.
No. But yeah, it's rooting them, locking enemies down, pulling them towards you, is like such a intense role for a tank. And in most MMOs, you're just a meat shield. I forget who says it, but you're just basically a meat shield. But now that this game is like giving crowd control, heavy crowd control, I can see it being so much more to actually want to fear a tank.
And I don't think it's coincidence that a lot of, like, at least from the Ashes, reactions I've seen from people who have played other large scale PvP MMOs, the shot callers are excited to play tanks. Because when you're a shot caller in a battle where there's 50 of you fighting 50 other people, it's like the fact you can, have CC, the fact you can make that wall, you can pull people back. It's like, and you're also tanky or have the possibility of being tanky. It's like, that is the perfect role for a shot caller. It will let these people who are leading these large groups have agency to change the battle how they want. And instead of just, hey, like, you always have to think about it with scale. It's like in PlanetSide 2, whenever a new weapon came out, the first thing our outfit would do, our guild essentially, would be to have every person in that 48-player platoon try that weapon out. Maybe you have this weak weapon that just shoots like these big balls and does AoE. Well, when you have 48 people doing it, it's not very weak. I'm imagining it's the same way with a shield wall. I'm imagining like, okay, just like we practiced, boys, and then you just have 5 tanks all just wall out around somebody and just block them out. Like, it's gonna be good.
Because I was very analytical of that whole video, watching things. I love the heals, like how they followed and they went around terrain, they went around trees to hit Steven. But did you ever notice how long those walls last?
I don't know if I ever saw one naturally despawn.
So I counted it. They last 10 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Which
might as well be an hour.
I mean that 10 seconds that you cut off them from line of sight, heals, any type of support is just an insane amount of crowd control, and I can't wait to see what other kind of routes and crowd control that they have, especially when it comes to the augment system. Because I have a feeling that Rangers are going to have trap augments. I have a feeling like that would be an insane augment to just line an ability with, especially with you for mages. Just throw out a trap and then it's you walk over and then it's a blizzard or it's a firestorm
Yeah.
or frost nova just freezes them, kind of like hunter traps in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I could totally see that being a thing. And Wizzy in the chat says that he hopes that bards are kind of CC nightmare fuel, which I think kind of brings up a good point. It's like so far from what I've seen, like just like debuffs just like dots and whatnot. I believe crowd control also can stack. So you have somebody's burning, and then if you use a fire spell on them, it's like I think a conflagration or something, and they kind of just explode for the burning damage plus whatever. It seems kind of rare where a class can single-handedly cause a major CC thing. Whether it would have to either be a trap from a ranger or a pull from a tank that's bringing somebody to you. I'm feeling that they're gonna make the very powerful CC kind of walled off behind having to have a multi-step thing. You're staggered, then you're tripped. And so it'll be interesting to see how much interplay needs to exist between classes because, with a bard, maybe you're really good at initiating it, but you need somebody else a lot of the time to come up and do the actual
trigger
trip,
it.
the actual stagger. And so that's, I think, an interesting way to balance, because what I don't want to see is I don't want to see every person who wants to PvP running an ice wand to slow people. I don't want to see every single fighter and their mother carrying ice wands trying to slow people down themselves. Like I hope that there's it's harder to yourself trigger your own mega CCs. I'll get off my soapbox.
did you ever play Guild Wars?
I did not. I played a little bit of Guild Wars 2, but I just mostly
Yeah.
did the map completion stuff because I was very high.
So I hated the buff system in that game where basically, every class can do whatever buff if you spec into it right.
The boons,
I
right?
hated that, but yeah, boons. But I love the debuffs where they just kind of stacked.
Mhm.
The more you can slow somebody down, like there were a lot of generic buffs or debuffs. They were called conditions. I like the fact that I think a lot of the debuffs like bleeding, wound, poison, like a lot of damage over time stuff can stack. So you can look at an enemy and be like he has like 7 or 17 stacks of burning, and then like say if you're a mage, right? You have an ability to put a debuff, like a unique class debuff. Mages have can put that where he takes more fire damage.
It's awesome.
I think there should be generic debuffs and then class unique ones. And don't even get me started on the boons. I think every class should have their own unique buffs, kind of like
That
classic WoW.
is a fantastic. I like that take a lot because I know that, at least from my experience playing, classic WoW, is the game started off with a lot of bring the class, not the player. Bring the class
Right.
to the raid. Bring 24 warriors because the warriors are the best at DPS. That's it. And then it seems like they did a huge pendulum shift to essentially now all of a sudden every class has everything. Bring the player, not the class. Where there needs to be a middle ground. You need to have things like generic debuffs that
Mhm.
can be applied by multiple classes or generic buffs to make it so that you don't just need that, what was it? What was the thing shamans had?
Totems.
No, but okay, pop your whatever damage buff now. There was a really
Oh, bloodlust. Bloodlust or
like, yeah,
heroism.
like pop bloodlust, and you just only needed to bring one shaman ever.
So on top of that, and I really hope Ashes doesn't do it. So shamans used to have that unique buff, and in classic, it was only shamans that had it. But once paladin or was it Draenei could be shamans and bring crusade, they gave the they could be shamans, so they got heroism.
Mhm.
So now each side had it. But now I think there's like I want to say there's like 4 or 5 different classes that all give the same buff. Mages have one. It's called Time Warp.
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
only one. And like so, like there's a whole bunch of them. So you don't need to just bring a shaman for that one buff. And I think that was so sad because that was such a unique thing that shamans can bring to the table.
I do like the idea of there being, like, I love the idea of there being this, raid option. It's like, we have this tool in our tool chest. Um, I am hoping that Ashes has those big things that a class can do to help the whole raid or even their party. If it's just their party or just in an area around them, just so it's not the only reason you'd bring somebody. That's why I love this debuff system, because you can have multiple classes that can stack these debuffs in different ways. And then you also have room for the bring the class mentality of, you have this thing as a mage that will use all these debuffs.
Right.
I hope this also ties into, like, I hope you are not absolutely boned if you're a fire mage in a fire dungeon. It's like, I understand that you might do less damage in certain cases, but I'm hoping that the utility you bring in other ways is enough to be like, I mean, well, we can still bring them. It's not like bringing a fire
You
mage
just
to
have to use
molten
this.
core.
Oh yeah, where it's basically you're immune to everything.
Yeah.
Everything's immune to you. I like the whole immunity thing personally. And I mean, yeah, it
Fair.
does suck that you're but I mean, it depends on how hard it is to go and respec. Because
Mhm.
in classic WoW, you had to spend real gold, and it kept going, increasing. That's why everyone just played frost mages because it's too expensive to go back and forth.
Well, what's
And
interesting is now, molten core might have been 2 flight paths away. You're there in 7 minutes. Now if you want to go to the fire dungeon, maybe your home node is like, 45 minutes away. Suddenly it's like, I think we're gonna, if the major metropolitan areas that have huge raid dungeons, it's gonna be interesting seeing the demographic of people who live in those nodes. Because if I really want to play a fire mage, I might not
right.
live in the node that has all the fire enemies. I might live away from that node. I think we're going to see real changes geographically as far as distributions of classes and
Goes where?
specs. Yeah, just by, like, I love playing this class, I'm ineffective here. But I also love the idea of being like, we have no fire mages here, but fire mages bring this and it's super important. We need to, like, find a fire mage, like, it's
See,
cool,
that's the
interesting
other thing
dynamics
that's
to me.
kind of because it kind of work. It seems like fire is getting really, being with the nerf hammer in a lot of the elemental system. Because if it's raining, I think they do less damage. If they're in cold climate, they do less
I
damage.
did see
And
that,
then
yeah.
if you're in a hot area, like say the Sandskull Desert, I mean, you may do bonus damage, but if you're versing something that is fire elemental base, then you're not going to do any damage.
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand like how it works technically, but I would like if the elementals if the elements didn't nerf the damage that much,
I
because it would make a
understand.
lot of sense to bring a fire mage to the Tundra Mountains to defeat this ice golem. He would
Mhm.
melt them. But if you brought a frost mage, they may do bonus damage because it's cold, but because you're versing an ice golem, you may do less damage.
I love the idea personally of, actually at first I was very against, the weather affecting stuff, because I've realized, like, it's really easy for my mindset to, with modern MMOs, shift into the meta, do this, do that, obviously, this is not going to be optimal if we do this. Whereas I think if you like, I don't want a cool system like weather affecting things to be shelved due to people using it for a meta. I like more the idea of some random weather. It's so these are things that are going to happen regardless of where you're at, but it may be a boon to you, it may not be a boon to you. And then there's other interesting things that can happen because of that. Maybe you're in a node war with another faction and you're like, okay, guys, we got a lot of fire mages. Let's wait for it to be a really hot sunny day. We're gonna, we work, or it's like, oh shit, hit up the Discord. It's raining right now. We were gonna do this in an hour, but if we go now, our thunder is gonna be fantastic. Like, things that are gonna be able to impact the game in a way that will be random and not overbearing, but still kind of fun and emergent. I don't know.
It can go. It could be a toss up.
Yeah.
One thing from the weather showcase, because he did say like the weather is going to shift randomly. It's going to be basically like AI. It's going to go back and forth. But then like random extreme weather events like a snowstorm or um, you know was it a thunderstorm will have those. What was it? The lightning strikes that almost instantly killed
I was
Steven.
about to say, how great was it when Steven got absolutely murked by that random lightning bolt?
I mean, he walked into it. I didn't think it was gonna one shot him, but it was funny too because I actually looked at how much damage it did to the Minotaur they were fighting, and I think he said like it did like 700 damage to the Minotaur, but it did like 1,000 damage to Steven. Probably because he had lightning resistance.
Or anti-lightning resistance.
Yeah.
So Nasty says essentially, I feel like anybody seeking to use meta builds are going to miss out on their own best gameplay possible. What are your thoughts on that?
I never liked meta builds because it's so cookie cutter. They're not unique to you. And I think I've told you this that like if you use pure augments, like if you only use fire or only use teleportation, and like with how many different variations you could do with one character, there's like 338,000.
Mhm.
And if you're just gonna do what people say are best, you're missing out on all those different options.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that is really kind of always floating in my mind is what's going to make a weapon unique? Is there going to be a bonus when you max it out that is going to be unique to that weapon that will make you want to go to it, right? So, like, say daggers. Daggers are known for stabbing, bleeding, maybe or crit. Uh, you know, I want to go with daggers because when I max it out, I'll get maybe like a 15% crit chance with my melee physical attacks. What do you think about that? Do you think weapons should have a unique passive that is only aligned to them to make players want to get that weapon? Because right now it kind of seems very generic in the skill trees. I know it's very early still, but
I do like weapons affecting a class's innate kit. So maybe a wand will affect an ability. Something that's kind of specific class agnostic. But maybe if I want cooldown reduction on my abilities, I should be if I'm a melee fighter, maybe my next I should be using a dagger. Maybe a dagger is going to let me use my abilities more. Maybe
right.
or something like that. But to bring it back to the meta thing,
Mm.
I like meta stands for most efficient tactic available, right? And usually nowadays we think of meta, we think of a build. We think of a specific build. We're like most efficient tactic, a meta. A meta is just this build, you do this cookie cutter talents and you're optimized for DPS. Whereas, that might be more of how you'd balance and find a meta in a game that is balanced around solo play. Like a lot of theme park MMOs. WoW balanced a lot for solo play, even raids in a way. Essentially, they bury it down to what's your DPS need to be. Okay, cool. We maximize for DPS. We bring these classes with DPS. With Ashes, they're looking to tune the game. You can tell by all the systems, again, like the tiered buffs, the tiered dots, the tiered, like having to build off of each other in different classes.
Right.
They're optimizing they're building the game around the idea that you should be in a group. And so the most effective tactic available becomes not what the individual class is doing, but what the group is doing. Like, I think there's going to be metas around a group, essentially. I think that, instead of your meta being be a fire mage, have these talents, the meta is going to be we're trying to build as many burns as we can and then have these 3 different classes that are going to consume these burns. And so that's what excites me about it, is the idea that the meta might be more about your composition
Right.
as opposed to your individual build. And so maybe you can make your crazy build, do the job that you want to do within your group. And then that's fine. That's fantastic. You found a new way to attack content,
I think he does. I really agree with that. Because I mean, can you name one MMO or any game where an average party is 8 people?
uh I mean, I come
So-
from Planet Side, so the party size was 12, but
Oh,
that's
okay.
an FPS. I mean, you have like 6 different classes, but
RPG and
it's
those.
still an F. Yeah. So, but no, I can't
Uh,
really think of something that has. I mean, how big were the things in EverQuest? How big were the parties in EverQuest?
I mean, I played the revamp, or I played a private service. I never really played that, but I think it was like 5. I think the general group size for most games was always 5 people. The 1 tank, 1 healer, and then the 3 DPS has always been. SWTOR was the first game that changed it to 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS,
Hmm.
which kind of made sense because there was 4. You know, for Sith, you had the Sith sorcerer, warrior, imperial agent, and then bounty hunter. So that kind of made sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think he really plans to have unique class identities for every single class to bring to doing any group content. Like, to get the most out of everything is you're going to need one of everything,
I
whether it
like
be a
that.
buff or a
you know.
debuff.
What? Okay. What class that we haven't seen yet are you most excited to see?
So I mean,
Rogue,
either
summoner,
tank.
or sorry, I mean archetype. Which archetype? Rogue, summoner,
I know you mean. Or bard.
or bard.
I've never been I've never really been a fan of rogue gameplay. This game might change it because I love the camouflage ability. Um, I mean, everyone says the summoner, just because it's so malleable and like everyone's more focused on like, oh my god, what kind of summons? You know, if I go summoner mage, what am I gonna get? If I go summoner, bard. I'm honestly more interested in the bard than summoner, just because of the importance that Steven put on it when they were talking about it, that it's going to be almost as crucial as a tank and a cleric.
You are on my same wavelength, and I think and Wizzy's too. In chat, Bard. I am so excited for Bard because, put it in perspective, one of my favorite classes to play. Back, I always bring it back to Classic WoW because that's kind of, I feel like, a place that I was very into, and you sound like you know what's going on as well. So it's like,
I mean,
I loved Shadow Priest. What I loved about Shadow Priest in a raid was the ability to give people mana back depending on how well I was doing. And so, like, for Bard, yeah. I loved being an enabler like that. And so, like, I'm glad that, to bring like something up, a different game, Overwatch 2, they don't call their healers, they call them supports, because not all they're doing is healing. I think like Bard embodies that on like just the base level. I want the Bard to be an enabler. I want the Bard to be able to not only capitalize on things, but I want to be like, oh, you want him to be burned? I'll burn him. Oh, you want him to be a little bit frozen? I'll freeze him. And so maybe I can't use the stacks as a Bard, but I can add those stacks. I can like lay it up so other people can dunk it.
So on the terms of like importance, especially when it comes to PvP, the way I see and hope that it plays out is tanks are going to be like tanks in League of Legends, where they're going to have an insane amount of CC. But when it comes to bards, I think bards are going to have like the most wide variation of buffs, and not in terms of CC. Maybe they'll have some CC, but status effects. Kind of like what you said. Maybe they'll play a song that trips up the enemies or slows them, allows them to get staggered, and stuff like that. I mean, we had the little. I don't know if it was really true, but there was a YouTube short. I forget who put that out, where the bard like strummed his little guitar, and the enemies just went flying backwards.
That was so good. Wizzy McNasty says, he's been saying for years that he hopes Steven makes the Bard the Chad of the group as kind of an ultimate troll to the MMO community. Like, I would love, in this, I would love for a Bard just to be a pivotal point. Like, and it's a good point you made, that Steven has said he wants the Bard to be as impactful as a tank or a healer, because suddenly you are allowing people to do their jobs better. And I think this really ties into, too, it's like why he doesn't want damage or healing meters in this game is because it's traditionally a lot harder to tangibly show how a class that's a purely not purely support, but very support heavy class like a bard is providing value. I almost wonder
Right.
if people are going to, people who aren't used to group based MMOs like this, if they're going to kind of shit on the bard because they'll be like, oh, you're not doing anything. When in reality, maybe he's adding 15% crit to everybody, or doing this or doing that.
The way I kind of see Bard, it's kind of what you're saying, because Shadow Priests were insanely cool because of the mana regen, but they also, with Vampiric Embrace, they heal 2% of the damage they dealt.
Yeah, and they spread it to your group too.
Yeah. Well, I think in Classic it was to basically your group or your whole raid.
It was group, and then
Um,
they in Lich King they I think moved it to the raid, but you could only have one person or something. No, it wasn't Lich King even, because there was
oh, it
the
was
thing that
Classic.
returned mana back to you. But instead of it
Yeah,
being a
I
percentage of your damage of mana returned to your group, it was just a buff that
Spirit
yeah,
increase.
yeah, or something like that.
That made it ignore the in combat debuff. But there was a video, and you can tell it was OG, like it was on Fraps, I think, if you remember that.
That huge fraps
Um,
on the top of the screen,
but it was 40-man all priests went and fought Onyxia,
that's
and they were all
wild.
shadow priests, and they were able to do it because they were able to put so much dots, so much shadow word pain on the enemies,
Oh, because this was
and
after they
they
removed the dot limit.
yes.
That's
And it
wild.
was such amazing to watch, just like all the dots just load up, and they were all just getting healed constantly that the Onyxia couldn't kill. I think they maybe had one tank
Or
just to
whelps,
absorb the
handle
damage.
it.
Even
Minus
side.
minus 50 DKP.
Who the fuck was that? Russian left side.
Left side.
Do
Oh
not
man,
stand the right. I love that video. That was
it's.
so
I feel like
classic.
I need a minus 50 DKP soundboard. Let me see
Oh my god.
DKP. Nope, don't see anything in my soundboards. But
Okay.
kind of bringing this back to how I like my classes, feeling like you have agency and you're getting better. I hope that the buffs of your bard are directly impacted by how well you're playing it. I hope that the better you're playing your bard, the more you enable people. That's what I loved about the Shadow Priest giving mana based on the damage they were doing. When you're doing more damage, you're giving other people more mana. And so I
Yeah.
hope that there's a way that you can kind of have skill expression as a bard besides just pressing your things on cooldown.
I think it's going to really come down to buff and debuff uptime. Um,
Augment probably
because
impacts it.
I'm sure the way I see, depending on what your secondary augment is, I feel like it's going to really change. Either give a bonus damage, like imagine like you give your bard, right, and you give bonus attack speed to everyone around you, and then you go fire mage augment with fire, and now everyone who's affected by it deals bonus 25 fire damage for every time they auto attack or basic combo.
Let me ask you a question. How important do you think that distance is going to
Oh
be
my
for a bard? Do
well,
you think there's going to be smaller cones of areas people are affected by you with a bigger buff? Or do you think it's going to be a large range around you? Like, are you going to have to be moving around the group? Like,
before we get on to that, so my pocket healer Barks, look into the soundboard on
yeah,
this. Look in the soundboard, the very bottom right. He put something in there for you.
That's a fucking 50 DKP minus!
that's fantastic. That is.
Thank you, Barks. Or
Thank you.
Classic Gaming.
Oh, that's
Um,
good.
but no, I think bards are, based on what they put their things into, it's going to drastically increase or be very situational. And like, say if we're doing a 40-man raid, I believe there's, if you're doing a 40-man raid, I think you should have at least 5 bards. One for melee up front, one for range physical, one for range magical, one for healing, and then one up front with the melee for defense.
Mm.
All around, the one guy, the healers, is giving maybe mana regen constantly. And that's another thing that I like about the bards is the mana regen. I think Steven was saying that you can group without a bard, but it's like if you don't, you're gonna have extreme mana issues. They're gonna be a very big source of constant mana regen. And that got me thinking about classic WoW, 2004 classic WoW, shamans, because they would have so many totems out.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Mana Spring
I
and
think it
stuff.
was called Mana Spring, Mana Tide, and they just had like I'm trying to remember. I just remember they had to have so many totems out, and you kind of like a bard. You know, you would have certain ones placed in certain areas. You would have some that would give out defense over by the tanks,
Which almost makes me
and
wonder, like, if you have a secondary augment of a summoner as a bard, are you going to have effectively totems you can place around? Like, that'd be kind of
see,
cool.
that's one thing I'm gonna be testing for my buddy right in my chat is because he loves shaman. He loves shamans.
Mm.
He mained them. He loved the elemental. He loves healing them on them, and I really do hope that so if you go the shaman or the shaman route, when you do a buff, you might put a temporarily a smaller, like say if you do a 50% mana regen buff, you also put a totem down that gives a smaller, like maybe a 25% buff for about. And I think when it comes to summoner as a secondary, I think a 15-second for all your secondary summons is a decent duration. Not too long, but not too short where it's ineffective.
Yeah, so essentially that makes sense. And it kind of ties into how I hope they manage augments in general. Like I've kind of held myself back from going into the specifics of what I hope each individual class or augment combo is. I know that you can go for hours on it.
I'm sure
I've
most
ridden
of
a
my chat
bike.
can know I
I've
can
ridden
talk
a
about
bike
for hours.
for 2 hours, where an hour and 45 of that was you talking about the summoner. It was great. I loved
It,
it. But
I mean, it's really I mean, the summoner is such a moldable class, especially when you say like he's gonna be. I mean, he kind of described it as it's gonna be the druid from WoW and Ashes, where you can be whatever. You could be a healer, a tank, a melee DPS, a ranged spellcaster, and it's like really crazy that he puts that into people's minds. Um, and then you have to think like, okay, how are all these gonna play out?
sorry, I was saying goodbye to Wizzy McNasty. He's heading out.
Was he? Oh, that's nasty,
That's
Peter.
nasty. But yeah, it is interesting to think about. I hope that with augments, they like because each archetype that they have like some thematic way they want to build it. So it's like with a
Right.
healer, I think a healer kind of similar to, or it's a cleric a bit similar to like a paladin, whereas you're doing a lot of direct healing. You're like directly healing one person, or you're very oriented on like tab targeting somebody and doing something to them. Whereas with the shaman in WoW, your shtick is that you are providing area of effects that you can move around. I hope that they handle secondary augments in a similar or in a way that kind of just adds another win condition to whatever class you're playing, or another thing that augments like a play style. Like for a summoner, it seems like with a summoner class, it's like you are a caster, but your main shtick is that a lot of your power can come from something that's outside of where your character is, and that's kind of
Right.
like that's the power fantasy. It's like that as a summoner, the cool thing about my class is I don't need to be where my power is coming from. And so I hope that they just take the cool part they're trying to do with each of these classes and have the secondary augments add a bit of that to whatever class. So it's like suddenly if you have a summoner augment, I'm not thinking of the specific ways it would change your moves at the moment. I'm thinking more like I hope that they can add that flavor of my power doesn't need to come directly from where my character is. And however they want to spread that around is fine, but as long as they make it engaging and like I want to be able to play against, let's say I'm like PvPing somebody who's like a ranger fighter archetype.
Okay.
I hate this guy. I'm fighting him all day, and I really learn how to fight against him because he's a ranger fighter. If he changes to a ranger summoner, I want to be able to notice without him telling me. I want to be fighting him and be like, oh, something's different. Like, I want it to be tangible enough
Are
for
there,
me to be like, oh shit, he switched to a summoner, that rascal, like.
where this falcon comes
Yeah,
from.
exactly. And so whatever they do, I hope that when I'm fighting somebody, I don't need to be told what their secondary archetype is. I can tell. This guy is blinking at me all of a sudden. Like, damn, like, you know.
So I mean, so I think it was Narc who made I remember like when they were showcasing like the tank and the cleric, like he was
Mhm.
doing like what he would do with the UI and whatnot. I think having a split UI or not UI, but a split icon where generally you'd see like the tank or the cleric on the left. Like if you once you go like say if you go tank cleric, right?
Mhm.
I'm a paladin now. The left side would be your primary, and then the second side, the right side would be your secondary augment. And so I can look at there and just by color coding, right? I can click on rack and like blue, yellow. Okay, that guy's a paladin.
That's cool.
So I mean, uh, I think that would be a nice way to be able to tell what they are, as long as you kind of get the if you know the colors and you can kind of like look at a glance. Okay, blue, he's a mage, but then he has like a yellow. Okay, so he's a mage cleric.
I like that. And I whether or not they explicitly tell you what another person's, class combination is, like I I'm fine either way. It'd be awesome if they did show. I just hope that I could know without having been told. I hope it's impactful enough that when somebody has a secondary archetype, I could know by fighting against them or with them too. It's like, I'd love to be able to see when you click on them, but I hope they make them in a way that they're impactful enough that, I could tell too just by playing with them.
Just by their augments alone, you're like, well, he's teleporting around, so he has to be a mage at secondary.
Things are very fiery. He must have a fire augment. You also blew my
Yeah.
mind when you told me that you'd be able to have multiple types of augments per secondary class, because I had no idea. Like, I thought a mage would just be a secondary mage augment, but it sounds like you could secondary lightning or fire or ice or.
Mhm. I mean, that's what he says. I mean, as far as unless he decides to change it, I mean, it's pretty
I almost
close
think
to
like it's
when we're
too
gonna.
much. I feel like they're gonna have to scale that back for it to be like
I
I could
mean,
see
I
updates providing new augments maybe.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it just being, a singular augment and then it changes all your abilities accordingly. Like it adds just the
Yeah,
fire
yeah.
augment to all your abilities or the teleportation. But I kind of like, where you can kind of mix and match them
Yeah, yeah.
if you wanted to. But I mean, one thing, kind of going back to the secondaries and with talking
Mhm.
about the summoner, um, the names give a lot away, in my opinion. For like example, like necromancer, right? A summoner cleric. Obviously, if you go death augments onto your summons, they're gonna be zombies. But if you chose light, are they still gonna be like zombie priests, like undead priests, or are they gonna be like a holy spirit
Yeah.
summoning Jesus Christ?
I mean, Steven says there's going to be religion, so
I mean, yeah,
I would. I
maybe
think they'd
not
be a
that
little
kind, but
spooked if they did that. But no, I get what you're saying.
they
It's like how, the names give away what you might be doing with that class.
or
It
might be a core thing.
it's interesting. I wonder how much of that is them planning what they're going to do, and how much of it was Steven in a room with his buddies being like, you know what name sounds fucking I wonder
I
which
mean,
one is. I bet it's at least a little bit of both. I wonder which one it's more of.
because like I believe for one, I think Rangers are gonna have a nature-based augment.
Mhm.
My theory behind this is because they are the only class right now that has nature-based abilities, and even the game says nature is an element that you'll be able to use. So
Ooh, I wonder if they'll
that's I'm
have
like,
mini marks, like small marks that you put on people.
well, they have hunts. They can put hunts on.
Oh, is that what they're
Uh,
called? Hunts or marks, or I forget exactly. Because they have
so
something they put on themselves and something they can put on other people. If I remember,
so they have hunts is what I'm actually gonna look it up right now
like the
because I
difference
have
between the aspect of the and then a
yeah,
mark.
the hunt of the boar versus the let's see, just because I'm always on the wiki. Hunts, yeah, and hunts are self buffs. That's what they're. Marks are what you put on the enemies. Hunts are what you put on yourself. And
Okay.
I mean that's pretty cool. Um, but I think so. Yeah, with the whole, I think traps would be a very wonderful augment to change your. It kind of reminds me of Path of Exile, where you change your ability into a totem or into a trap, and when they walk over, it triggers. I think that would be amazing. And then I think Rogue is going to have a shadow based augment, just because five or six, yeah, six of their full class names have shadow. You got Shadow Disciple, Blade, Caster, Shadow Mancer, Shadow Lord, and Shadow Guardian. And you're telling me they're
Wow.
not going to have a shadow augment?
No, I think they're really into
I,
bright
I,
lights, to be honest. I think it's
I
No, that
mean,
makes sense because I like one of the main, like, as I was talking about, one of the main draws of a summoner could be having the power outside of where your character is. One of the main draws of a rogue, when I think of rogue, what do you think of in a game? I think of either a builder spender, like combo system sort of thing, or
mhm.
or I think of camouflage and like being able to avoid detection. And so I think, any augment that has that rogue as a secondary might have one of those or both of those aspects weaved into the normal spells. Like maybe the more you auto attack somebody with a rogue secondary augment, the harder hitting your next spell is going to be, or something along those lines. I don't know.
Very interesting.
I don't know. We'll have a lot to test in Alpha 2. I'm excited to be
Oh
testing
yeah.
it out.
Oh yeah. Once they release secondary archetypes, it's gonna be a whole another ball game. It's gonna be like a whole different game at
Yeah.
that point.
One of the things I'm
I
excited
mean,
for post launch content too. It's like, due to how, if they set up these systems right, cool content a year after the game comes out could be additional augments. Maybe you have another tree in each of the classes that you could do instead. Like,
oh
it'll.
my god, that'd be that'd be so much.
Well, no, I don't mean adding like a third augment. But I mean, like, as a mage, you have fire, ice, lightning. Maybe if they added the arcane
Teleport.
to that,
Well, I believe personally, I believe summoners are gonna have planar because they said planar is another type of magic damage.
wild.
And I think summoners are gonna have it because they're the only ones that kind of don't really have an already base. Clerics have holy, bards have music, whatever magic you want to call that, and mages have elements. So I think planar would be probably tied to summoner because that's kind of how it was in Final Fantasy. As a summoner in that game it was kind of like more like starry magic abilities or arcane abilities, as you can say.
I just can't. Whenever anybody says star and magic ability, I just imagine, what was that thing that druids had balanced through, like Starfire, that just fucking one shot everybody. You'd have like 8 druids and they would just be calling down like a metal
Starfall,
concert
yeah.
shower of death. Like,
Yeah, Starfall was, and that area was like 30 yards from
Yes.
the point of him, and it was so widespread.
so
like,
far. You're like, how am I getting hit? What am I getting hit by this shit? Oh, it was the
Oh,
druid that just unstealthed from being a freaking cat 20 meters away that I couldn't see,
And now he's a giant bird.
A big old battle chicken. I guess that kind of, leads me to another question, mentioning battle chickens. Do you think that you're going to be able to use kind of a different shift, but it made me think of like being able to shapeshift or being inside of vehicles. Do you think, like, how do you think that mounted combat's going to affect combat? Because they mentioned that some mounts are going to have abilities you can use in combat. Am I going to have a cannon on the back of my horse? Like, what do you think is going to happen with these?
So I think horses are going to be built for speed.
Yeah.
I think they're maybe they might have a hind kick or maybe like a stampede.
But it'll probably be a dash. You can move 50% faster for 2 seconds.
I mean, you play BDO, so you know how fast those horses can get.
Oh my god,
they get kind of crazy. And then when you get the Pegasus, you get the double jump. But I think I kind of just think that mount should have maybe a one-off attack, like your dismount, and then that's the ability that they use, and then you go right into combat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I know Steven was doing the flying. He did that dive bomb, and he was still mounted. But I think normal mounts should have like, say if you're charging in with a raptor, they either have an AoE ability where they jump and they do like a little tail swipe around in a complete circle, or they kind of have a jump ability where they'll land on a person, maybe root them down, like stab them with their talons, and then you
Now,
hop off, the mount disappears, and then you start fighting.
the animal husbandry BDO brain in my head is now so excited of the prospect of you've mentioned these two different types of mounts, horses and raptors. Now imagine crossbreeding them. Imagine you have the dash and a tail kick. Like, it's gonna be like this whole Mendelian genetics thing where you're trying to like, get a horse that has a tail lash or something like that. It's gonna be, I hope it's a pretty deep system because it sounds like it could really encompass a lot of really cool factor.
I'm wondering for the animal husbandry if there's gonna be breeding groups. Like there's gonna be different types of raptors, there's gonna be different types of
But
horses,
it is a
but you
raptor or it
can't
is a horse.
yeah,
or
you can't cross. I wonder if you're even gonna be able to crossbreed. Because I think there
Tank, you
was a
got to put on
game
your
like
evil scientist cap or some. You got to breed everything.
oh
But no, I
my
get
god,
what you're saying. It's like some
I'm just
stuff
I'm
might not
trying
be
to think.
compatible. Like,
I mean, you have the snores, you have the snail horse. So I mean,
yeah, they already did the hard work for us. They've made these ridiculous creatures.
but I mean, just gameplay wise, I mean, I don't know what the like how the models would work. Imagine breeding a raptor with a snail horse. Like, what would that look like?
Like, because in my head, I'm like, okay, where do they just attach a snail to anything? Like, they the art team, if there's going to be compounded and like mix and match animals, they need to be making the models correctly to be able to mix and match these things. Like it
You
if
can't leave AI to it for
yeah, I
sure.
know. I mean, if I'm gonna make a freaking Megatron Transformer horse snail raptor hybrid that has a pull-out couch in it, like, how are you gonna make that? What's it gonna look like in the game?
There's a game that it was like it kind of felt like Ark Survival.
Oh,
But basically, like you would take it was kind of like a Pokemon style game where you would take an animal, like a basic raptor. If you killed if you killed a rhinoceros, right, and you can like, change, like have him devour, and he gets basically one of the abilities or parts from that animal, and it just like looks so weird. I had a raptor that had a rhinoceros head, a firefox tail, and then it became a bipedal because I got like I think it was a wolf, and so it's just like this weird looking creature and just looks so distorted. Like I created it in a lab and it just looks like it wanted to die.
this sounds to me a lot like Spore, the game Spore. You know that old game Spore where
Yeah,
you
I remember. Yeah,
I would just make
it was basically like that.
thing my creature doesn't need more eyes. You know what it needs? More jaws. And then I just put more jaws on it until it was this big writhing porcupine mass. But I like seriously what I would probably see the breeding system be like is so far they've shown that they've made certain like I imagine it would be kind of uh like oh man, like Pokemon in a way. It's like, perhaps they already have Pegasuses made. And the only way you can make a Pegasus, you don't find it in the wild. You breed a horse with some sort of flying mount, and then you get a Pegasus. Like, I feel like perhaps they're going to try to make like more vanilla mounts that you can breed into
Okay.
pre-made other mounts instead of just like, oh, it's a horse with a snail with a tail with like the spore way. That might be a little bit more manageable for them. Or maybe when you're breeding, you're not actually going to change the appearance, like its actual model.
Get the
You're going to
ability.
change maybe I take my my lightning raptor and put its lightning
Mhm.
ability with a horse. And then that's the change. I still get a horse, but it's got lightning. I don't know.
I
They'll
mean,
have
and
to
they can
simplify it
kind
some.
of. I mean, I can see if they had like elements like that, and they kind of combine it because that's pretty much what they're doing with abilities. Hail of arrows with lightning. Now it's lightning arrows, and they just kind of
Yeah.
add lightning effects to it. You could do that easily with, okay, you got a basic horse, you add a fire, augment onto it from another animal. Now you got Rapidash from Pokemon,
Yeah.
or whatever. There's a lightning zebra, whatever from Pokemon. I mean, they could do that easily. I can see that being an easier route.
That's why I'm happy
Um,
that they've made a lot of. I mean, okay, it's going to be a hot take. I'm glad there were so many different pre-order packs because now that means that they've had to make all of these NPCs and mounts and stuff that is now going to feed into their system. It's like people bought this. They have to incorporate this stuff. And so we get kind of an idea of, some of the bare minimum of the different types of mounts we can get. And using that, who knows how the breeding's going to work.
uh, kind of going off pets or
Yeah, yeah.
animals. What is your opinion on battle pets and how Steven says they borrow your power rather than giving you power like summoner pets?
Interesting. Borrow your power. So is a battle pet something that anybody can have, essentially?
So yeah, he said like anyone can basically be like a hunter from WoW, where you get a pet, but it's not just an additional damage you do. It just says it. The way he words it is that it borrows your power and puts it into the pet.
Interesting.
And I'm
So
like, I'm
if I
just trying
have
to
a
think
hundred,
about
oh,
that.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, you're probably on the same track. Like, so you're saying if I have 100 of every stat, it gets 10% of that, and then it helps me out in combat. That doesn't really make sense, in my opinion,
To
because
me,
you're
this sounds
essentially making.
something more like a secondary that a summoner archetype would add.
But no, this is something that he says everyone will be accessible.
Weird. Like, because what effectively it's doing on a gameplay level is it's splitting your power to something that is either has to be targeted separately or is able to be used separate from yourself. And so the benefit of that, I mean, if you're using your own power to make a creature that's going to tank for you, does that just make you a lot weaker? Does that mean that if your pet dies, you still have a chance to kite them back? I will have to
And
play this because it sounds pretty ambiguous to me. I think it's an interesting idea. I hope it's not kind of an overload. I don't want a 40-man team to have 40 battle pets that I'm fighting against too and having to keep track of all.
they do say that you can only bring them in certain areas, which kind of makes
Oh,
it even more weird. It says they may not be able to be summoned in dungeons or instances or other spaces. The exact line that I have on this wiki says combat pets are a horizontal progression. Unlike summoner summons, combat pets do not increase the player's power, but instead require a sacrifice from the player. It's important to note combat pets are primarily horizontal in nature, where class are vertical mechanic.
I wonder when
So
this was
that's
mentioned
the
last.
that's the one thing. It's like if I'm a tank, why would I sacrifice? Like unless you can choose what stats to sacrifice. Like so, say if you're a fighter, right, and you want a magical base pet, like say like a lightning worm, like the worms with just wings, like it's from WoW. I forget what they're actually called, but like if imagine if you want to take all your magical base stats and put them onto the that worm, so it kind of does bonus damage because you're never going to use mana as a fighter, a base fighter anyway. That would make more sense.
Or
But
I
if you're sacrificing
yeah.
everything,
Maybe another option would be like, okay, I am that fire mage in the fire dungeon that does 100 deep fire DPS. Um what if I could say I'd like 30% of my DPS to be in my frost pet, you know? And so maybe it can augment the type of damage you're doing. Because I mean, then that kind of mitigates some of the issues, and you can use it as some strategic. Okay, cool. I have my fire snake as an ice mage. Now some of my attacks are fire, and if you've completely gone ice resistance, at least some of my damage is going through. But if you kill it, then I'm just out. Like, what happens if you kill a
yeah,
battle
I
pit? Can you target it? Like,
do. Does the power go back to you? Or
yeah.
that's the thing that he hasn't really kind of touched up on that, other than saying you sacrifice stuff for it. But I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't want to make myself weaker just to have a pet that is going to be doing what 10% of the damage I would have done.
I
And
hope it's
if
like
you have
Zach.
somebody stanky,
I hope it's like Zach from League of Legends, where if you kill me, I explode into 45 sloths that you have to kill individually before they come back together, okay? That's my battle pets. And then if they come back together, well, I'm back, baby. Okay, maybe not. That sounds a little over the top. But I think that's going to be a system that if it hasn't been mentioned in a couple years, is not going to come anytime soon. I have. If do you have anything you wanted to add to that? Or if not, I have a question for you.
No, I mean that was kind of a one-off question.
Yeah, no. How long do you think Alpha 2 is going to last?
Hoping. Uh, I hope it lasts. I think it's gonna last. I want to say a year. I want to say 9 months for Alpha 2, and then hopefully like 3 months for the betas, and then release.
Mhm.
That is my hope,
Your dream of
because
dreams.
just because the way they say, the Riverlands is like the main place that we're going to be, because they were building the tools that they needed to create everything. Now they got the tools, so creating everything else is going to be monumentally easier.
Just like that
They
Copium
already have
Clinic
the tech.
video, like the
Yeah,
linear versus the exponential growth.
and it's I think even though, I mean, how many milestones did he say we needed to hit before?
He said
I
there
don't
was an
even know
Alpha
what
2 set of milestones. I don't remember the number.
let's see here, milestone. Jesus Christ. Um, let's see. What does it say here? Oh yeah, it doesn't say anything. Does not say. Does not say. It just
Because he did
says
say there
Alpha
was
2.
Alpha 2 milestones that before Alpha 2's release, they want these things. He never mentioned what they were that I've heard of. Maybe somewhere else.
I mean, obviously, augments are going to be one huge one. Actual node, because we only have scientific nodes right now.
Node progression,
That's all we're gonna.
like the node
Right.
system, 100%.
Yeah. So I mean, the fully fleshed out node systems, all three of the all the other three node types,
Mhm.
the augments are another huge system in this game, and then uh, I'm like how the nodes, what's it called, the parent and the vassal nodes, I think are going to be huge, and then you got naval as well. Naval is
Yes.
another one that we haven't really seen, and that's probably going to happen later in the. I think that's going to be one of the last things that we're going to get.
Oh, I forgot that I was not streaming under the Ashes of Creation in YouTube, so I did that.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, no, that makes sense. The major milestones you mentioned are things that I would expect us to be testing, at least if not at the start of Alpha 2, extremely early into Alpha 2. As far as how long I think Alpha 2 is going to last, I have kind of some stipulations I'll start out with first. The first thing that kind of to be said is Steven said that the Alpha 2 server, essentially it's multiple servers, but the Alpha 2 experience is eventually going to be the PTR, and he wants Alpha 2 to run pretty much up until release. Then after release, it's going to be the public test realm.
right.
That
The
being
betas.
said, it's going to be running concurrently with the betas then, is my understanding. Maybe not though, actually. Maybe they're going to want everybody to be in the beta. So,
Right.
but I might be a bit more pessimistic. I think Alpha 2 is going to last at least 3 years. That would mean the game would come out 2027. I think just dude, if they include all of the systems, like have you seen Reese Gaming? He does some Ashes stuff. He does some more economic related stuff, a lot of thought stuff.
I have not heard of Reese. I know of a podcaster named like Reese.
He has
But I don't know if it's the
I
same
think it's
one.
like a 2-hour and 20-minute video of everything we know in Ashes of Creation so far.
Oh, I think I might have seen that.
You
but
might have
just
seen that
glossed
one.
over it.
There were things in that I'm like, I have never heard about this. And you look at the wiki, and you're like, oh my god, this is a whole nother system. It's like, if all of that is going to be included on release, I think at minimum we have 3 years. That being said, that's part of the reason why I bought an Alpha 2 pack. I'm like, okay, I get 6 months of game time, and also no matter how long it takes for this game to come out, at least I'm playing some version of it. It's kind of how I
Right.
to myself rationalize. So I think what's going to happen is they're going to release, they'll have Alpha 2 going, they'll release a big piece of content, and then they're gonna get testing on that, kind of like a little microcosm of what we're doing right now during dev discussions. You leave your discussion, it's the focus of the week. You leave discussion, they iterate on it. But man, I just hope that they're updating it quite frequently.
I mean, I think they're going to continue with the monthly updates. I think going into alpha, I mean, because since they like you said, Dr. Burns's video on data. I mean, if you have we have over 100 people, 100,000 people
Oh my god.
playing, there's gonna be so much data that they're gonna be able to put in. They're gonna find, they're gonna learn everything they can probably in a week of every time they release something new.
hmm
So I mean, I can imagine, we're doing something monthly, like they release something to us monthly, and it slowly builds in. I mean, augments are going to be a long. I feel it's going to be a long time. Testing out everything. But I mean, like they release the Rogue, everyone's going to hop on the Rogue. They release the Summoner, everyone's going to make a brand new Summoner. And they're going to find some sort of bugs, and then after they got those two, I believe they're going to release augments after they release Summoner and Rogue. I don't think they're going to release augments before.
I agree 100%. They need to have people playtest the class before they have people playtest augments. And I think they're
Right.
going to release augments in like groups of 1 to 3. I don't think they're going to release all of them at once. I think they're going to be like, we've added this augment.
I mean, because mages already have 4 augments.
Yeah,
so
right.
that's,
Like,
and he said every class is going to have 4 augments. So I had said, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that I think that every single class is going to have at least one utility type augment. What do you think about that?
interesting. Kind of your arcane sort of mage sort of thing. One utility augment. So
Because
I guess so this would just be something that would affect. You might have more damage based augments, or effect based augments, and then you might have utility. Or how would you define it?
So the way I'm thinking is because mages have 3 different, because mages are mainly damage. So they have fire, lightning, and ice. But then they have teleportation, which is a utility style augment. Mainly for mobility. Rogues have stealth that we found out. I mean, hunts are
stealth.
more of true stealth, yes. Who knows? Maybe rangers may have camouflage augments tied to them. Because we've seen rangers being camouflaged, so they have to have that ability. But like, say tanks have, a threat augment, because if you're able to, because they said you can basically be an off tank if you choose secondary tank. So you would have to be able to build up threat. Maybe not have a taunt, but have a taunt or a threat augment to where your fireballs now deal bonus threat damage or threat gain.
That's cool. I like that, because that still, at least in my mind, fits within the scope of what I was talking about before with bring something cool from that class in the augment. Extra threat. Having a threat, doing threat as a tank class. That is something that like you play around. You play around your threat that you can generate. And so letting any class generate more threat, maybe they're making a tankier class. Maybe in your group of 5 friends that are going to make a group, nobody wants to play the tank, but you want to be a tankier summoner. Maybe you need to have more threat. Like that makes perfect sense to me, and I think that's a good way to design it.
And I mean, like clerics, I believe I have, and we'll find out, in about a year when they finally release all the augments. But I believe clerics are gonna have. So we have life and death. Life, which is healing, death, which is like death damage or unholy damage, however they want to put it in this game. I think they're gonna have the third one's gonna be like holy, for holy damage. Because life is mainly healing, so you have to have a holy damage from the holy class. So I think holy is gonna be the third one. And I was thinking like the fourth one would be something like barrier. That's their utility. Because they're a healer, so you want more utility augments from them. Bards is a crapshoot.
Who knows?
You can
like it could be
buff, debuff, AoE, and I don't know, regen, or is what I really came to think about right there.
No, that makes sense.
I mean, just I mean, that'd be pretty awesome, having a bonus regen from the bard. Oh, you do say you do your whirlwind for every, you regen more health or more mana every time you hit an enemy. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of like your mana regen ability if you go bard secondary.
Or like latent or like smaller versions of bard abilities that buff other people around you. Like,
Right.
maybe 5% of all spells you cast, you give that, mana to the people around you when you at bard secondary.
Oh yeah.
Or like things like that that'll just be utility from the bards for so I'm so excited to try a bard. I hope that they make it fun.
Oh my god. I mean, I just want to bash people in with the loot.
Oh, Lootin' Dootin', the Lootin' Tootin'
Just
cowboy.
just be, playing my banjo. Oh, you want to fight?
Pop.
Boom.
Do you ever see the game Dark and Darker?
It's been a
Kind of
while
like a
since I've seen
dungeon
that.
crawling game. Essentially where it's you lose your items on death, but it's like a really dark dungeon. But there's a bard class, and you can throw. One of the metas for a while was throwing your drums. They would call them Drumbledores, like Dumbledore, but Drumbledore, where you would or Drum Mancer.
I
You would just
have.
throw your drums at people. You'd like carry like 6 drums in your backpack and just equip them and throw them. It was one of the funniest things I've seen. I wonder if like I'm imagining like a bard ultimate ability or a bard ability just that where you throw your weapon with such force it does some insane damage, but you can't use your songs for 20 seconds or something like that. Like,
Do you remember? Do you remember Steven saying that there's going to be class abilities? Not. I shouldn't say it like that. Class synergy abilities.
I don't remember him explicitly saying that except for talking about how the buffs and debuffs that you can initiate can be consumed or used by other classes.
So I'm trying to pull it up from the wiki. Um, but they talked about at one point that there would be a unique ability, especially I think it was mainly during node sieges and node wars, that if you had a full group of like say of one class, they can summon or they can do a unique
Yes.
buff or damage.
Yes.
So like if you had 8 mages, you can cast a giant
Thinking
meteor,
like Final
and whoever
Fantasy demon god meteor,
oh,
like,
the freaking what's his
Ifrit or
name?
whatever.
Ifrit, yeah, just coming out of that giant moon. Siege summons, that's what they were
Yep.
called.
And only during sieges, though, if I remember. And so with the tank, you might have this huge tank wall or, a hail of arrows. Like, that stuff sounds badass. Now, imagine it takes 5 minutes or like 2 to 5 minutes to cast that. And then suddenly, and you're very vulnerable. So suddenly, your small 8-man group who might not be good for, doing a head-on attack against the 100 Zerg Fest, maybe suddenly you have a new objective to stop these summons, Maybe suddenly that's
Right.
something that a small group can do. They have a lot of opportunities, not just with the summons, but kind of how they give a little mini objective.
So I mean, what they had put on
Oh
the
yeah, read them
wiki,
out.
it only has tank and summoner. It says summoners can collaborate together during sieges to summon large creatures such as golems. And then it
Man,
says for the tank, Stephen, this is a quote from Stephen Sharif, 2018. So it's
a little aged, but
very accurate. Very accurate.
Oh yes.
If 8 tank archetypes each use one of their summon wall abilities, it might construct a larger wall that can be divided, that can divide 2 raids in a moment and require damage to and block skills and abilities. And it would last a while. They would have to basically break the wall in order to get through it.
I'm imagining just the tank wall. They just lazily stretch it and make it like 100 meters long. Like
And
it's just like
it's
looking
just
up at
it's about like 10 feet tall, where you can't backflip over it.
tangent to the tank wall thing. One of my favorite parts of the last war live stream
Mhm.
was this moment where I forget who it is. I think it was the ranger guy. It looks like he
Phoenix.
called out for a tank to put down a wall, and then he retreated behind it to break line of sight of people instantly. Like that stuff is so cool to me. Suddenly you've just made cover that your team can just jump
Oh, yeah.
behind too. It's like
You go to save your buddy, like your hero gets pulled out, and so you
Mhm.
want to save him, so you drop a wall to stop them from attacking.
Saving Private Tank. No.
saving,
Or
saving private hero.
tanking Private Ryan.
That's another thing that they haven't really. I mean, they said like the physical collision thing, but we didn't really get to see it in action. So they said like so. I'm just gonna use my wife as an example. So say if you are targeting my wife with arrows, right, and you're shooting her, supposedly,
Jesus.
I mean, she's
Yeah,
gonna
no,
get
no.
pelleted. She's a mage. But like, so supposedly you can target her, but if I stand in the way, I'm gonna take the damage. That is
Really?
how he says. That's what they said. Like you can body block abilities,
I hope so. That'd also be
and
really annoying. If you're the tank and I step in front of you on accident, I'm like, oh no, that was coming for you.
it very takes the term let the tank go first
Yeah, I
to
know,
a
right?
whole new meaning. But that's what they said is supposed to happen because we've seen if they retreat behind trees, I think they can still shoot them, but the trees take the hit and it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, they'll try to go around it, but I love the idea that if you have your pyroblast crawling its way towards me and there's a wall, I can jump behind the wall while it's in the air and hopefully get around it. Because that's like they've already
Or
shown through APOC, through the Apocalypse gameplay, that originally
Mhm.
it was like FPS style, shooting bullets almost. And so it is possible in Unreal Engine 5 to have your fireball know if it hits something, you know?
That kind of going off Unreal Engine 5. So, um, because Steven, like they originally started on Unreal Engine 4 and then they transversed into Unreal Engine 5. But like you said, if it takes 3 years from alpha to get this game going, because I think they said like Unreal Engine's like releasing a new Unreal Engine 6 is going to be coming around uh, 2028 or something like that.
They need to release before it comes out, essentially. It needs to be a cool new
Yeah.
game.
And so, like, I can't imagine how it's going to be if, when the game fully releases on U5 and then U6 releases, and now basically all this, what we've seen from U4 to go to U5, now we have to wait for them to switch from U5 to U6.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's why I kind of, am kind of putting, maybe a year and a half at most, because the way he has a lot more employees, and like the way this game has been growing, like especially in the systems that we've seen over the recent 2 years, like
Mhm.
has been getting built a lot faster. Systems have been, I feel like it's increasing in speed. That's why I have high hopes it's going to be like a year. Like we're going to have this game almost fully developed in a year.
Mhm.
Next Christmas is my hope.
That would be awesome.
I still have like 6 more questions
Let's do
on
it.
my notepad.
I need to
Um,
find a higher quality version of a mic with a brick wall background. Because this one is looking a little
I
pixely.
I actually looked at him like, why is his mic behind him? I'm like, oh wait, I forgot that's his back.
Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay. Oh wait, this one, how we feel about the tank cleric part. Oh, we've already talked about that. With damage dampening not being a thing in terms of levels, do you think we'll see, especially in game launch and Alpha 2 launch, do you think we will see low level players zerging point of interest to do mass level to their guild and party?
Oh, interesting. So there's no like dampening on damage.
So if you are
Hmm.
level, if like we've seen in the Node War, Steven wasn't. He was still taking damage. He was killed. I mean, he was a little bit tougher because he had higher level gear, but you know, 15 levels higher in any other game, and they would not be able to touch him. You try fighting a level 30 with a 15 level mage in World of Warcraft, you are not hitting him or you're barely touching him. And that in this game, it doesn't matter because it's all going to be based on your stats. So
Interesting. So I think there's kind of two ways that I've seen higher level enemies handled. And you can kind of think of it again in classic WoW terms. When
always going back to the roots.
when classic WoW came out, the first, no, not TBC, before that, the way they would handle elite enemies is essentially they would have that enemy just be a higher level than you, which meant that your essentially your chance to hit and everything was just scaled so far down, because they were a higher level than you. They switched that essentially so that you wouldn't be fighting things 4 levels above you, because it feels really bad to miss and deflect and
Yeah.
not hit all the time. Instead, they had buffed people who were your same level at a certain point going forward, which meant that you could still hit them. They just had vastly higher pools of health and damage than you. And I kind of like that way better, because nothing feels worse than just like not even being able to hit something. That sucks. So
Yeah.
I could foresee good groups trying to fight higher level content. However, if you're going to be leveling up, I don't think that's going to be optimal. I think what we have to remember is like Steven, and one of the things that Intrepid doing is like building this almost like a more Korean old school style MMO where you're going to be grinding in spots. And so if it's at all like the other games I've seen like that, it might not like the fact it's going to take you longer to kill those higher level creatures is probably going to make it not optimal to at least grind experience that way. Now, as far as, items and whatnot, or just for the clout, maybe me and my, group of Joe Smo level 5s might try to take out some level 15s for the monster stuff. But, I
Go
just,
Zerg the Tower of Carfen.
yeah, it's like, it's not gonna, I mean, it would be for the memes, it's not gonna, I don't think ever, and I don't think it should be the most effective way to do it. Maybe there's a really rare item that I'd love for these things to drop that will put us further ahead in some way. But, it's not like if we bring 50 people, there's going to be 50 times the loot, as they've mentioned. So
Right.
I could
And
see it
the
being
XP
possible,
divided too.
and I cannot wait to see the memes. It reminds me of like back when they would release betas for Classic WoW and whatnot, where you could, or the re-release where you could get to level 20. People would just be like, "But can we do like Scarlet Monastery? Can we just like do a 40-man raid in like this level 40 content?" And it was some of the most funny shit I've seen. But that's in a game where you dying doesn't really matter. Now, if
Right.
you're not going to be having as much fun when these things are one-shotting you and taking away percentages of your XP. So I think it'll be possible. I don't think it's going to be common.
Okay.
How about you?
I mean, I think it would be hilarious to see.
Oh yeah,
But yeah,
100%.
but when it comes to the level, because like they said, if me and my wife are killing something, we're gonna, the DPS is gonna be increased a little bit, but it's still gonna split between the two of us versus if I were just killed by myself. And I think there is gonna be like a limit, like maybe a full group, right? Is kind of like the
Mhm.
limit before it stops increasing the amount of XP and just starts splitting it amongst many people, and it becomes basically useless. But I
Makes
thought it
sense.
would be kind of interesting to see that you could do it because
Mhm.
of the no damaging, as long as you had, good round classes.
I do hope that you can still fight things a couple levels above you if you have a good group. I hope that it's feasible and possible and good. But I don't think you're going to be fighting something twice your level as much. Just because it's fun to be able to do content you're not technically supposed to do if you have a group of people. It's fun. I'm gonna need to be back in like a minute or so. So I will be right back.
I will be here on this treadmill.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, let's see what question. How do you feel about there being a limited number of freeholds on every server? Do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing? How do you feel about the direction that Ash is going with quest commissions and point of random missions? Okay. And how do you think voice over IP will be in the community, especially when randoms that join groups? Other questions? Oh, that'd be a what else? How much that change do you think Grandmaster should be able to move? Dude?
Okay, I'm back.
Oh,
I'm gonna keep my camera off for a sec because my girlfriend just got back. So, but yes, where
I'm trying
were
to keep
we?
her hidden. Um, I was asking you non-invasive questions. Um,
Non-invasive questions, perfectly. That's what
um,
I know we're known for. No.
um, how do you feel about there being a limited number of freeholds on every server? Do you think that is going to be a good or a bad thing for the community?
Oh man, this is the spicy one. This was I remember this live stream being one of the first times I was like, I don't know. This is something that I like. uh, I totally get why you need to limit places where you can process goods. That makes sense to me. What I think is a little bit, honestly scummy is just people buying these and being sold these things under the impression that we knew not everybody was going to have a freehold. We didn't know that potentially only like less than 10% of people would until kind of further on
Right.
along. And so from a gameplay perspective, it makes freeholds a lot more enticing, I think, worth a lot more prestige. um I a question I would love to ask Intrepid is what is the acceptable percentage of players being homeless in Ashes? Because I know that you're technically going to be able to stay at an inn, but it's like freaking housing markets as hard as it is outside of the game. Imagine like I don't
I
know.
mean, I think apartments are infinite. I don't think there's a limit on
Oh, there
apartments.
are limits. Yes, you get to choose whether you spec into having more apartments or not. But that's something the mayor has to decide essentially. Because I think you start with, what is it, 50 in a level 3, and then you decide whether or not you invest into more instanced housing.
Oh,
Yeah, so that, I mean, but technically you're going to be able to, exist in a tavern where maybe you can have, or like an inn, but there's going to be a lot of people who don't even have like access to a freehold, which, is pretty rough. I
yeah.
I wish personally there were more. And that being said, I see why they're limiting it.
Okay, it was ends that are basically infinite.
Yep. Inns are infinite. They're infinite. Eh, eh. No.
I didn't have it ready, but
That's a
That's so good. Yeah, so
Um,
I think it's necessary, and I'm happy to hear that there will be such a thing as guild freeholds that you'll be allowed to perhaps use part of a guild's freehold. I think they need to add more, personally. I think that maybe they need to add a
I think
small freehold, you know?
I think low thousands is kind of harsh on a server.
Of up to what,
Just like one
50K?
certain.
No.
Yeah. So like, what is that? That's gonna be like around less than 10%. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
That you're gonna have. I mean, that's gonna be. But I mean,
just
if you have a
freeholds.
freehold, that's for your whole account. See, that's the other thing that is kind of because when he was showcasing the freeholds, he made it seem like anyone can kind of go into a freehold and they just kind of have to pay a fee to the owner to use
Mhm.
it. So I mean, if that's the case, I'm not really worried.
It makes
But
sense.
I mean, it's kind of cool that if you don't want a freehold anymore, you could sell it. I do like that idea.
That is cool. Like
Um,
having like you played Arcade, right?
yes, I played, and
I
oh
did
my god,
not.
the
So
land. I mean, I didn't really own a house. I mean, I knew of it, like especially where people would like put down plots and like the newer areas, and you had to make sure you weren't too close to the neighbors and a whole bunch of random crap. Um, but I mean,
I
I don't
believe.
know.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say like crafting wise, because like so that's my biggest issue is crafting. Like obviously, I can go and grandmaster craft or gather anything. That doesn't require a thing. But if I need to process something, I need to have a grandmaster processor, and then I need to find a freehold that I can use that has a the highest station end game wise that has a highest station of what I need to process. And
And
then
isn't there
I have to go and
queues?
find a grandmaster crafter. Yeah, he said there were some like queues. I don't know if you have to be physically there or if you could just
I think it's
drop
there's
your shit
queues and
in.
processing, so you can drop things off, but it'll be done in that order because it needs to use the resource like the coal or whatever that's powering it. And so it's there's a queue. So I wonder, like, man, it's gonna make some interesting interactions. Like, okay, we only have one grandmaster processor in this node. There's a huge line of people who need this stuff processed. This guy's making an arm and a leg. Like, one thing I do hope for freeholds is that there is a pretty aggressive way of putting it back into the system. Um, if somebody is delinquent on taxes, like as soon as somebody's AFK for like, I'd say a month, I think their freehold should be. I think that you need
Oh
to
yeah.
mostly just because like people leaving the game. If freeholds are going to be like freeholds need upkeep. Things aren't going to work if they're not upkept. And so if somebody quits the game, I think I think it needs to be pretty quick that their freehold is kind of processed, lack of a better term.
And I
Because I
mean,
think once they're delinquent, it goes onto the open market or something.
that makes sense. Because I mean, yeah, people leave games. It kind of sucks. Like hey, I'm gonna go on vacation for a month,
I know,
and then I come back and my house is gone. I'm like, well, I did leave the game for a whole month, which is like a
but
whole
can I
year in
like
the game seasons.
like pay like in beforehand? Maybe I could for 3 times the price pay for next month's. Maybe like I could extend that time. If I'm going away on a trip, or maybe I could have one of my buddies foot the bill, but make it cost more or something. I don't know.
I'm gonna put a lien on your
Yeah, I
freehold.
know. You hear about the new bounty hunter augment tree, the repo man coming in repossessing your cows, like
Well, he hasn't paid his bills, so I'm gonna take his Michelin star cooking equipment out of here. That's just another thing is like because like some of these like the cooking, I can see cooking. Well, that's probably like the cooking and weaving are like the two that I can see being used in apartments.
I forgot weaving was a thing.
Yeah.
What
It's
other neat
crazy how the professions are spread apart because you got 5 gathering, 9 yeah, 9 processing, and then 8 crafting.
That's wild, especially because gatherers are far and away going to be the most numerous professions, at
Right.
least from what I see.
But processing is where it really
Where
comes
the
down to the
bottleneck is.
players. Yeah.
Because processing is directly attached to land. Like it's gonna
And
be hard.
crafting is attached to the metropolises and the cities.
Hmm. So it's like
And that's
you and
it.
your buddies are gonna have to like if you're playing with a group that's not large enough for a big scale guild, you're gonna need to band together and try to get yourself a freehold if you want anybody
Yeah. Just go to that one
way out
random
there
village
in
that
the
no one's a part.
boonies.
Hey, where's your freehold? Oh, it's in the Sasquatch Desert. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hot as hell, but I mean, it's beachfront property.
Yeah, it's like moving to one of the flyover states because you can afford a house there, you know. Oh man.
How much does this cost you? Only 10,000.
Oh, wow, that's
But
1963 prices right there.
and I got 20 acres and
Well, what
got
are
my
your
own lake.
thoughts on the amount of freeholds?
Um, I mean, I kind of thought it was gonna be more or less kind of like BDO, where you can put it down anywhere, but it was instanced to you. Like only you can kind of go into it. But after looking at it, you only get one per account.
Mhm.
So if you have a freehold, you're locked to that. So if you have a specific process that you want to do, you're gonna have to focus on that one. 'Cause I don't know how many grandmaster let me see how many grandmaster stations can you even have in a freehold, or do they even get stronger? Like the crafting stations inside
Yeah, you can
cities.
level up your stations, and so I'm fairly
Whoa,
certain that like you need to be probably a grandmaster processor to build a grandmaster processing station, but maybe you don't. Maybe you could be any Joe Schmo that has a freehold and just put it there, you know?
so I clicked on freeholds to try to find that answer, and it just popped up. Freeholds are approximately 1.5 acres in size.
Hmm.
It did not seem that big when Steven was playing it.
Yeah, right?
That's for sure. His looked like a little like maybe 30 by 30.
Yeah. Personally, I would not like I think for the essentially the integrity of how the game looks, they want to make sure that there's not too many freehold, like stumbling across one every minute. But I mean, the map is huge. The map is wild. The Riverlands was what, like 2/3 the size of the entire map of New World or something like that. I forget the exact size, but
It's pretty big.
it's huge. Like, I don't think like they said they don't want to have little hamlets where you have multiple freeholds near each other, but I think that could be a really cool way to do it in some ways. Like maybe you're limited to the amount of certain types of stations you can make, but like in WildStar, I played quite a bit of it. You had your own instance housing place, and that was a huge draw for a lot of people. People would make their housing spaces into the coolest things that I've seen. Like it's I think it's definitely I see why they need to be scarce. It's just it's sad that more people won't be able to I'll get off my soapbox again.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, you probably already noticed. It's hard. I don't really talk. I mean, I can go on my own tangents in themselves. Trust me. But I like listening to people and their ideas a lot more than listening to myself.
Yeah, well, it's nice to bounce stuff off each other. It's a lot easier to talk, and stream when you have somebody
Uh,
who's able to like, say
bounce
something.
yeah shit off. All right, let's see. What else do I got? Um, how do you feel about the way quests are going? With you have commissions that are kind of like New World, but they're more directed, to benefit the towns. But then you also have the random missions that we saw, just walking around. We saw that Minotaur was like, hey, my, take this and give it to my brother because he's a weakling, yada, yada, yada. And then after you trigger the event, they'll make it rain. You get another quest that spawns, hey, this Thunder Lord Minotaur is wreaking havoc. Go kill him. How do you feel about that kind of the way the quests are set up so far?
Yeah, the way I see it are there kind of three major styles of, quests. As you mentioned, there's the board that you can like the mission board. I love the idea of a mission board. I like how it's like one of man. Okay, what I'll say is I love progression so far in what it sounds like in Ashes because I am a huge like I love progressing a faction up or grinding up this or that, and so the fact that your node as a citizen is something that's a direct progression path is really cool to me. You know, like to that you can get better quests and better rewards by helping out your node more. Again, that reminds me of the opening of Encourage and whatnot. It's like people working together. It's awesome. Like I do like that style of quest. That being said, I hope that there are quests that are location specific and quests that are not location specific. Because I want to be able to go to my town board, be like, I'm a grind. I feel like grinding some of these Minotaur. And so it's like, oh, here's a commission that wants me to actually kill some Minotaur. Here's a commission that just wants me to chop down some trees. Those are near the Minotaur. Here's something that just wants me to kill things in the area. It's like, I hope that there's specific areas and creature ones, but that there's some that I can just take no matter what I'm doing. I'll know I'll be there. I think that'll be important because I don't want to be just like, oh, there's only Minotaurs today. I guess I can't kill these turtles or something like that. I think
mean,
that
I like the board. No, I agree with you. I like the board.
as far as the
I like
other,
the fact that like
okay,
go ahead.
we'll start with the board. We'll start with the board for sure.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was just completely agreeing with you. I love the board and how it's like more because like New World's board, yeah, people were saying like, oh, it's basically the same thing. New Worlds was generic, was pretty much just a generic shit.
Yeah.
Hey, go chop down wood, go kill the boars, go kill that nearby. It didn't really benefit anyone. I mean, the gold went to the town, but it didn't really feel like it was very specific. Where this one could be, go kill the Minotaurs, and then when you go to the Minotaurs, I have a follow-up question to kind of the random quests that we saw. But yeah, like how you go over the Minotaurs and you just see a guy saying, hey, these guys have been wreaking havoc. I would like for you to go kill them too.
And it
So
leads
now you kind of get
naturally
two
into
quests at
another
once.
quest. Like, yeah, just like very
Right.
natural in how it does that.
And then like the whole thing of like you just wandering around, you just find random quests. You don't even have to do boards. You just I want to just sit around and farm these guys, and then maybe kill them so much spawns a woman who says, the leader of the Minotaurs is wreaking havoc. Carne Bloodhoof is about to wage war on the town, and
There's this
we
new
need to
Noel
put a stop to
Hogger.
him.
Don't know if you've heard of him. He's in the area.
He's
Um,
outside of Stormwind. He has to be put down.
yeah, well, I
he-
like these notice
Oh my
board
god, I
things.
remember trying to do Hogger.
Oh yeah.
That shit was so fun.
I like the notice boards as kind of breadcrumb trails that can lead you to other things. So I hope that they've made enough like there's these radiant
Right.
quests that just have anything. I think another thing that needs to be included in these quests are events because there's going to be events that will happen around the world that will also be repeatable too. So to me, that's kind of another not storyline based quest, but another quest. Then there's going to be storyline based quests like the Minotaur whose brother is trapped or whatever, or needs to be saved. I forget what exactly it was. And then on top of that, there's going to be world quests. Like something's happening in this area. So there's so many different layers of different, quests, things you can do or rewards that it's going to be. I hope they play together nicely, and I hope that they're going to have to make so many quests because when I have a home node, I'm going to be spending a lot of time there. It would be cool to know that even if I've worked through all the quests during the winter, that there's a chance that there's going to be this new quest that happens in the summer, or maybe it doesn't happen every cycle. Maybe maybe this month it might happen, or maybe this month it doesn't happen. I hope that I can be in the same node and in a month still be able to come across a new quest every once. Because in other theme park MMOs, you do all the quests in the area, then you move to a new place. Whereas that will be fun in Ashes, don't get me wrong. It's just going to be a little bit harder when you have a home node that you're trying to level. Like they have to make it like the benefit of having this node system is that a place is relevant for a long period of time. A challenge is going to be they need to keep this place relevant and interesting. I don't want to get into the New World grind of just grinding those town board quests over and over again.
Yeah, that was very tedious for
I
sure.
did that. I had a place where I
I
lived where my house was the one that was shown for like a month because I had so much of those like, points for doing those quests. If you remember the person who had the most like
and then like
town.
kind of with the dynamic events. uh,
Oh, sorry. I think my internet's kind of freaking out. Um
I wasn't really all part of the political thing. You lied for a little bit, but now you're coming clear.
okay, okay. Go ahead.
Just a little delay. That's normal. Um, but kind of going off. So the other question I was kind of tagging on to the end of it. Um, is do you think there should be a meter to show it if you're close to spawning a random event, or do you think it should be completely invisible to us?
That's a good question. It would be cool if there were completely random events. I don't see why there couldn't be both. Because, if there's one thing that people in MMOs like doing, it's filling up a bar. So if there's a bar over an area, uh, you're probably gonna want to get you and your buddies to, do what you need to do. Maybe you need to chop down trees. You'll summon the Ent boss. If there's a little bar there, maybe that's something that could bring a lot of people to the same area, which might incite things like PvP. It'd be even cooler if I could see what's happening in another node. If in another node you need to do a tree chopping event, maybe it's a double whammy. It's like, oh wow, okay, node 1, there's something happening in node 2. Let's grab a group, go over to node 2, mess them up a little bit, and try and steal their world boss. It's like that sort of thing. If there's announcement beforehand, then suddenly you can have this engaging player. But then there's just random stuff. Again, that doing a general ping to the Discord boys at 1 a.m. because somebody found a world boss. Like, that's kind of cool. I don't know.
I mean, I just because it kind of reminds me of trying to trigger something, and you kind of feel like you're at it for hours and nothing happens.
Like, is it
One of the
bugged?
example right, and that's what I would like to kind of see, like a little bar, and maybe competing bars, kind of like in Burn Crusade when you were trying to capture something, and
Mm.
you had like red versus blue, and so the more you were in it, it went more red or more blue. Um, but like say with the Minotaurs, right? So say if I'm by myself and I'm trying to trigger, that little event to spawn, how long do I have to be like say if I'm the only one there, how long would I have to be there killing away to force that event? Because like
Tank
I don't
over
know if you
here
remember
always trying to trigger things, just triggering people
I'm
everywhere.
I am trying to trigger okay, I want to kill that boss. I mean maybe he has a lightning staff that my
Mhm.
wife wants and that's the way I have to get it.
She keeps getting shot
But
with
no,
arrows by me. No.
yeah, goddamn wreck. I need her to shock him to death. Um, but no, like in it reminded me of in the Barrens, and you were doing. I don't know if you remember the Centaur quest line, but you had to at the end of it, you had to fight all the leaders of the different centaurs,
Yeah.
and in one of them, the only way to fight him is you had to kill the centaurs around his lake or the
Oh,
oasis,
and sometimes you just
and
wouldn't spawn.
there was times I'd spent 3 hours, and it wasn't just me. Me and my buddy were just sitting there, going around and killing everything. I'd load up 3 times going around killing that, and the thing never spawned.
Oh man.
And then I come back the next day and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to do it. Kill 2 of them, and then he spawns. I'm like, are you serious? Like, that's why I want like a meter to see if how close I am to triggering. Not to say a specific one, but like say, like just triggering a event. It could just
Mhm.
be a random event whether maybe not. It might not be the same boss. It might not be the lightning minotaur. It might be a nature based or a summoner based minotaur, in a sense.
That makes sense. Yeah. You could also do is like just have a timer or a countdown saying an event is going to spawn in 2 hours. Depending on what your node
Right.
does, it might be a different event. And so it's like,
Right.
that'd be cool because then suddenly you have one, a reason for everybody to be in the same area, and two, you have some agency over what's going to happen. It's like I'm killing these minotaurs because I want the minotaur boss to spawn. Or, But I could also see the other side of that where it's like if everybody in your node always wants to spawn the Minotaur boss, and you're like, hey guys, there's a good thing from the tree boss, and they're like, shut up. We want the Minotaur boss. It's like then that could be kind of frustrating. So I can't wait I hope they try a lot of different things. I hope in Alpha 2 that, I hope there's not just one system. I hope that they have a whole bunch of ways for these to happen. Because it's always kind of fun to have a little bit of mystique about how things work. It's like, because that makes them really special. If I don't know how the Minotaur boss spawns and the Minotaur boss spawns, it's a huge deal.
I mean, I like the idea of, kind of like, where there's two sides, like say you have a Minotaur clan versus, a Centaur clan. And depending on like who is being killed more, it triggers a different event based on that. So if you overkill the Minotaurs, the Centaurs later like gets invigorated and wants to invade our town. Or if we kill the Centaurs, it's the Minotaurs that do it. Or, if it's kind of like evenly split for a while, they both decide to band together and then attack the town together.
It's kind of fun because as a town you can work together. Maybe you guys really want them to band together because then you fight both the bosses and get both the loot. And now you're like, okay, guys, stop killing the Minotaurs. You're just typing furiously in node chat like, what dumbasses are in the Minotaur areas grinding the Minotaurs? You're like, but nobody's here now because you're killing the Centaurs. Like, yeah, I think the more they can bring a greater community into it, the better it's going to be. Like, because that's fun, when you're having to talk over group or like node chat or zone chat.
Oh, I got a question about chat.
Yeah, let's hear it.
How do you feel about voice over IP or VoIP will be with the community, especially when it's random people forming the groups? Because they said that there will be in-game chat in groups, guilds, and raids.
Some of the best interactions I've ever had with people on the internet were with random proximity VoIP, and some of the worst experiences I've had on the internet are random people with proximity VoIP. I, for one, maybe I'm a little chaotic. I am for VoIP in groups. I actually don't think a lot of people will do rando VoIP in groups. I do think you should probably have the ability to opt in or opt out. And then some sort of indication to your group that you're not in voice chat, or hey,
like, the speaker and the mic with an X across it.
It's like maybe I'm not going to speak, but I can hear you, or maybe I can't hear you and I'm not going to speak. I think with anything like that, there needs to be effective moderation because some people are horrible on the internet, and there needs to be a way.
Oh my god, New World was so bad I had to turn it off. Just going into town, just hearing someone
screaming horrible things,
screaming Macarena.
Oh.
No, I had someone my scream was just like very off key, just screaming into his mic, "Hey, Macarena!" Ha!
And okay, that's hilarious and also horrible.
I don't know if it was like a actual kid or if it was someone actually singing it, but it went on for hours. Like I would go do some quest, come back 3 minutes later, he's still doing it. I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh my gosh.
But I'm glad that it is only within groups, so you can't hear random people yelling.
Yeah, I'm for it. I like it. I think that only for the sole fact that I am going to absolutely spam.
That's a fucking 50 DKP minus!
Anytime anything happens. No, I think it adds a lot to the game, and as long as there's a way to report people, as long as there's a way to opt out of the system, I think that it's MMOs are social games when you come down to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's gonna be pretty tame because you can always just like oh, this person's cursing or saying racial slurs or whatever, just kick them from the group.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, honestly, sometimes I like that because then I know for certain I don't want them in my group. I'd almost feel worse if I do a boss, everybody's chilling, this dude gets loot, and then he pops off with that stuff. Because like, man, I wish you never got this in the first place.
Right.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they do it because they're gonna have to toe some lines with it.
The final question that I had is crafting related. I don't know. Is how much stat change do you think grandmasters should be able to move around on crafted items? Do you think that they should completely be able to change a stat from like say crit chance to crit damage, or maybe split it like 50% to a different stat?
That's a good question. So I guess I have a question to start with. Do we know if stats are going to have some sense of randomness when you craft an item?
I I don't think crafted items have random. I Because I know when you crafted that weapon, like it kind of was telling you beforehand, it's
Hmm.
gonna have this, this, and this. But if you use this legendary wood, this is what's gonna happen.
Hmm.
So there is some play when you're crafting items, but like I wonder like how much
Because aren't you going to
like
be
from a
able?
base.
Aren't like the are there enchanters? I forget. Is that a thing? Are those the people who are going to be able to move stats,
Um
or the crafters?
I thought it was
It might be
crafters.
craft. I'm unsure. I'm uncertain.
I just exited out of the window that I needed.
Because I would love to see um per like if there was some sort of randomness to, because if there's randomness to weapons, I would assume that it would be kind of in two dimensions. There'd either be the overall amount of stats that be able to be allocated to a weapon, or there would be the types of stats that would be allocated to a weapon. So maybe you get a really high roll and your weapon has a lot of total stats, but they're in the wrong stat. So I I do like the idea of there being some element of randomness. Um, maybe yeah, as far as being able to move stats around, I think we should, percentage wise, I could see it being between 50 and 75%, perhaps. Um, that being said, any class can use any weapon, so it'd also be really cool if you could just make the great sword of healing. So I don't know. um,
That could that'd be pretty interesting. Have a mana
oh yeah.
magic based greatsword, especially if you're going to go like say fighter mage, what they always use as an example.
Hmm.
If you want your, or if you go mage fighter in a sense, where you're more melee ability oriented, but you still want to cast magic abilities, or maybe make all your abilities magical based instead of being range, it's all melee, and just make that great sword have insane intellect and magic penetration.
Hmm. Well, because only half of the reason you're bringing a weapon is for the stats. The other half is going to be for your combo type and the skill tree. Because maybe if you make the great sword of healing, maybe if you're a battle mage and you have a great sword, a fighter mage, you want to, or maybe a mage fighter, you want to use a great sword so that it has something that makes it so your next ability is 25% more effective. So, maybe if you have the great sword of fuck you as a mage, you're doing that to cast your pyroblast. But maybe if you have the great sword of unfuck you, the healer great sword, then maybe all of a sudden, you're using the great sword tree for that 25% extra healing. So, yeah, as you mentioned, that there's so many different classes, and so many different builds. I do like the ability of moving more than 50% of the stats around if you can use it to make play styles that are engaging to you.
See, that's one thing I love about like the generic, because they have the little tiny. You can either choose perfect timing, second strike, or burning blade for,
Hmm.
whatever those passives do. The ones I've liked on the great sword, and I think they were also on the wand, was Swordmaster Endurance for the great sword, which I don't know if you can only go down one of the little trees that they have. Like you have uh, consistency, which increases your proc chance, or increases the minimum possible health restore. Proc chance to where you proc it more often, and
Hmm.
then potential, which is increases the max. See, for me, like I look at that and I'm like, well, I'm gonna go proc rate because I want to be guaranteed that every time I finish a weapon combo, I'm gonna be guaranteed a heal 2 to
Oh yeah.
4%. And then on the last one, on the highest that they have so far, they have guard, which kind of does the same thing, but it says when your abilities have a 30% chance. So this isn't even tied to the basic weapon combo. This is just your abilities have a 30% chance to give you guard, which your next weapon combo finisher grants 6 seconds of a temporary barrier of 1 to 3% of your maximum health. Being a tank junkie, I see that as being awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And like that's kind of also why I look at attack speed too, because how fast can I go through these combos? And my build would just basically be, constantly left clicking. Oh crap, he's getting away. Pull him, put a wall down, back to left clicking.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested to see like how much variety, because I really hope that every weapon has different ones and they're not all the same. That's
I
my
agree.
fear, is that they're all going to be very similar. And that's why I was kind of saying earlier that every weapon should have a unique buff that is tied to that. Like, a longbow would have, increased critical damage, but a short bow would have increased, attack speed. Maybe, or, all your attacks have a 25% chance to proc a SAS effect. Like if a hammer, every attack has a chance to, stagger them or to knock them down, trip them, stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. There definitely needs to be some sort of way to differentiate weapons. I am happy after seeing the difference between a short bow and a long bow. It's like a short bow, you are much more mobile than a long.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
But a long bow
Loreforged.
hit
We
hard.
just got raided by Loreforged HQ.
Nice.
Hey, well, thank you guys so much for the raid. We're just kind of spitballing about Ashes of Creation right now, which I'm assuming if you're here, hoots, happy hoots. Oh, welcome back, Wizzy McNasty. Hoots, hoots. For anybody who doesn't hoot, that is a
That's a fucking 50 DKP minus!
just saying. So you better be hooting, or we'll be hollering. So
I'm gonna have to charge you for that soundbite now.
yeah, I know, right? we were talking about that soundbite, and somebody in Hank's Discord was like, "Oh, okay, here we go." Instantly made a soundbite like 20 20 seconds
Yeah,
later.
he has like a whole database of a whole bunch of sound bites.
Oh,
Tank-
thank you for the follows, guys, by the way. Loreforged, Gone Crazy, Backsoons, and Marksman. Appreciate it. Oh, wow.
Hank has the lowest heart rate of any CC.
The lowest heart rate of any CC. How is that? Thanks as well, Akitis Rock, Servo Mimic, Burger Lips. Gosh. It's a great nickname. Maybe not the best nickname if it isn't given. Ashray776, thank you so much. We were just kind of talking about we're a bit derailed now. What were we even talking about?
We were talking about the abilities, weapons having uniqueness.
Oh yeah.
compared to
And so we
others.
were talking about essentially we are hoping that the weapons and Ashes of Creation have, things that will enhance your abilities, but also don't share too much. Like half of a weapon is how you can use it. Short bow versus long bow, which seemed really cool. One's more mobile, maybe does more instances of smaller amounts of damage. Then you have your longbow, which would be like, you're less mobile, but you do more damage in larger bursts. So yeah, Tank is always walking. You're right. He has the lowest heart rate. So yeah, was that the last question? I know that all it took was us talking for 7 hours to get through 12 questions. So
I don't know about 7 hours, but I just hit my 7th mile.
7th mile, that's pretty good.
I still got an hour a minute left.
Totally on you with this. I want weapons to be an important choice of your build. 100%. One of the things that we were talking about later, and that you kind of ties into not just weapons, but like abilities in general. Oh, sorry, that follower announcement is going and going. The idea that something that both Tank and I appreciate in games is when you can play a class, or when you can watch somebody who's played a class for an hour and watch somebody who's played a class for 40 hours and see just instantly that somebody has a better mastery over the other. It's like a lot of times, especially in modern MMOs, it seems like classes get reduced down to, okay, you have this meta, you have this rotation. As long as you press this rotation, you're going to be within 20% of this other guy who's also pressing the same rotation. That, that's not as engaging. I love the idea of if I have used a longbow for 40 hours, I want to be able to learn the ins and outs of it. I want to be able to mess around with it, like really kind of get to master the weapon. We were talking about kind of like the Souls games. Tank is a huge fan of Elden Ring, I heard, and he never died once.
Oh,
and...
no. That's the only game I can't be a tank, and I refuse. They won't let me be a tank.
But it's like I love the idea that I can spend 50 hours with a weapon and still be learning things or learning situations. And so that's kind of where I come from with that. Yeah, big agree. You can excited, you can just equip any weapon. Yeah.
You want to know a little fun fact about leveling the weapons in this game?
Let's hear it.
So it would take you longer to level one with one character. It would take you longer to level up every single weapon to the max than it would to level every class to level 50.
All 64 classes? Is that what you're saying? No,
Well, base classes.
I'm just kidding. Proctease. Wow, I feel like I have to pronounce that very carefully or get demonetized. I don't want my class to define my weapons or my weapons to define my skills. That is a great way to say it. 100% I'm in the same boat. They should feed into each other. Like, I love the idea that my great sword could make it so if I'm weaving enough like normal attacks in between my abilities, that maybe I can keep it in mind, like, oh, I'm going to build this up so I can use my next ability and get more power, or so I can get more mana back, or things like that. I don't like the idea of every fighter, as we said earlier, every fighter and their mother running an ice wand so that everybody gets slowed. It's like, I'm hoping that, from a weapon into ability perspective, you can play between the two and they have interaction, but it's not, the end all be all.
One thing I really hope for with, because every class can be anything and wear anything and equip anything, is I really want to see unique and people creating these character builds. Like, I know meta builds, I don't like them, but I love to see stuff like I've said a couple of times that a fighter with a mage secondary archetype go with lightning, wielding heavy armor and a great axe, basically being Thor. And then like making these just I don't even know what you would call them, but just like doing that with, you can do that with a lot of things, like Ash from League of Legends. Go ranger, mage with ice, go full bow, and wear medium leather, and then boom, you are Ash from League of Legends. You can do a lot of characters in this game to mimic League of Legends archetypes.
Oh man,
Champions.
It just, like, hearing League of Legends makes my skin crawl sometimes, just a little bit, just because I remember how toxic that game was when I played it. It's interesting.
So
if you look at the Venn diagram of role players and the amount you can do and like make as far as transmog and make your character look like there, it is almost a circle. It's like, I feel like you're pretty much going to be able to build your character how you want it to. And like the fact that you don't need to look like you just came out of the Goodwill, having bought all your clothes, that old, like, especially if you played classic WoW, it's like you look like a piñata that just got hit by a car, just due to the random things on your body. It's like, I couldn't imagine going to my bartender and being like, oh, this is the Happy Hoots Tavern. Hello. And then, because the tavern wants to wear, their PvP gear, they look like a Christmas stocking, Oh, take care, Cash. Good night.
It would be great to see that, though, like, all these unique character builds. I mean, even from like World of Warcraft, just role players will have, a blast with, creating their favorite characters from either shows, animes, or other video games, and making them within Ashes. Maybe not, the facial wise, but and how their abilities work and their characters are. Because I mean, you can make Sylvanas. I mean, I can see the way you can make Thrall. I see a lot of different characters being made this way.
Can I make
And
Steven Sharif? And
Steve,
yeah, I mean,
what would
I think we all know he would wear sandals.
sandals?
We got sandals. I think okay, what class mixture would he be? Um
I think he said he was a cleric, right?
A
He's
mage
he's
that
a healer,
coughs.
man.
Okay. So Subo Mimic says a mage that coughs a lot. So, what I'm thinking. Is there a mage rogue archetype? A mage that can use poisons, make other people cough. That's the ultimate power fantasy. Is when
Spreading
you cough,
diseases.
you make other people cough. This is perfect.
Gonna put COVID into the game.
The cleric mage. Yeah, I can see that as well.
Death
Mage
magic.
Death cleric. That's my metal band. Hello, I'm Steven Sharif from Mage Death Cleric, and I am here to rock your world.
Well,
Well, I mean, one of the things I really liked talking about was essentially the that I love hearing them talk about essentially in this game is how they're not trying to build this game and balance it for solo progression. This is something I know we touched on a bit earlier, but perhaps some other
Yeah.
people in chat would like to talk about it. And we had mentioned that like meta stands for the most effective tactic available, not the most effective class available, not the most effective build available. It's the most effective tactic. And in a lot of games, especially nowadays, they're building around solo work or very small groups of people or huge raids. And so it's like maximizing for DPS is the meta because the most effective tactic is just max your DPS meters. But in this game, because they're balancing for multiple people, maybe the tactic is what your group can do. Do you think we're going to see a lot of metas? Because there's not going to be one meta, I feel. There's going to be a multiple ways that we can, approach issues, just monsters and whatnot. Like, do you think we're going to see heavy dot builds show up as a really effective thing? Because we have all those dots that you have the first level and then you consume it for the second level and it's bigger. Like, do you think that's going to be a huge part of it?
I mean, I don't. The first part, the metas. I think it's gonna be really hard for people to pinpoint metas
Oh, yeah.
because of how vastly different. Everything's gonna react to each other. Everything is gonna have certain resistances to other things. So, kind of like how we were going about with Molten Core, right? That Fire Mage build might be really good for one specific area, but if you go to a completely different area, it might be complete shit. And I like that. I like that you have to constantly change on how you're going to fight somebody. You can't just play one class throughout the whole game. You have to adapt.
Yeah. I know we also mentioned it's like I don't know if you're gonna find like if your level 6 Metropolis is on Fire Volcano Island of Hellfire, I don't know how many fire mages you're gonna find there. And so I'm hoping that there's other parts of the Fire Mage kit that would, even in the fire dungeon, make you want to bring a fire mage. Because then you're suddenly like, dude, there are no fire mages on Fire Island. We need to go and get some fire mages. Like, because they do this. There's this build, like our warrior wants to combust people, but we don't have a fire mage who can do this. And so it's like, I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays into things,
That is gonna be. I would love. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say Proc T says that he hopes that we do, or he or she hopes that we do have dot builds. So I don't know.
Oh, I would love to see dot builds. I mean, because we saw burning, we see there might be poisoning. We haven't seen that yet, but we've seen cold, we've seen lightning, and they kind of have like stacking debuffs. So we might be able to see some dot builds, maybe not to the extent of Shadow Priests or Affliction Warlocks from WoW, but I can see a lot of different types of burning damage. You have maybe because what is a because isn't there a class named Warlock?
I'm not certain, but
Think-
dot builds in my mind just bring me back to when I would play Rogue and WoW, and I would fight an Affliction Warlock, and then I'd kill them, and then 15 seconds later I'd die. And I'd imagine it was just like they were like in Terminator, I forget which one it is, where he's sinking into the lava. I just imagine that the Locka just did that, just flipping me off at the same time because he knew I was going to die too. Like Oh, I could totally see a summoner dot build. Yeah. Actually, I think I might bring up the wiki. Maybe we can talk about some of these dots on it, because I actually haven't ever looked at all of the dots or all of the status effects.
You might see the word WIP in there somewhere.
The wipe status
Work in
effect, where
progress.
you clean your friendlies of all impurities, we might say. Fair, fair.
Work in progress.
I know we tried to avoid wiping as much as possible when I've raided in the past. Okay, so we're seeing somebody's saying they think there's going to be summoner dot builds, and time limited summons that attack your enemies. Interesting. So maybe like if you're a summoner and you're in the fire archetype or something, maybe you can be casting spells, but then you summon something that is going to be doing burning damage as well. So maybe you can proc off your pet or something like that.
Something like a little fire imp to put another dot on it. Perhaps.
Maybe. So let me see. We have Arcane Might, Bleeding, Burning, Chilled, Conflagrated. Okay, so burning will burn you over time. What is conflagrated? Imagine it's stepping off of burning.
Yeah, and WoW, I think it was like a big burst of fire damage. Maybe it was kind of like what you were talking about earlier, where you consume all the fire dots on there and make it one big blast.
No, that's cool. So I'm reading kind of a skill reference of Fireball. It says, instantly hurls a fireball, yada yada, and it does 1 stack of burning on a target. When a target reaches 5
I want to
stacks,
zoom in on your. You might want to like control mouse wheel
sure.
up. So
that makes sense. Essentially,
so
1 stack of burning on the target. Burning deals periodic fire damage over time, and when it reaches 5 stacks, they become conflagrated. Dealing extreme fire damage. And so you can hit it with a lightning spell then, which causes fusion. Okay, so that's one of those builder spender things,
And I like the idea that classes could work off each other, because it kind of reminds me of Guild Wars 2, where you had people who put down like certain elemental fields, and then you have finishers depending if it's like a dash, a whirlwind, a projectile. It would do a bonus effect. So like if you had a warrior who did like a whirlwind ability inside your field, he would shoot out, like say if it was like a firewall, he does a little whirlwind in there and you start shooting out firebolt in random directions.
Random directions, you say? Would they be able to hit anybody?
I don't know.
That's the ultimate one. Can I hit my friendlies with this? Sorry, guys. It wasn't me. It was a random fireball. Oh, yeah. So Subo Mimic says that he's hoping for a summoner cleric build where you are maybe similar to a WoW shaman, where you have different little summons that pocket into people, and that's something we mentioned as well. With secondary augments. Personally, for me, I love the idea of taking a fun gameplay loop of a class and kind of giving a little bit of it to another class. And so we had mentioned, maybe the summoner does give totems, because the summoner, their whole stick is your power is somewhere away from you in a pet, or it doesn't need to be where you're standing. And so giving totems, like what do you think a totem fighter would do, like a fighter summoner?
A fire summoner, because I think the name is called Wildblade, and so what really pops into my mind about that is in the Death Knight, you were able to summon dancing rune blades that would mimic your abilities. So that's kind of what I imagine.
Oh, interesting. So you drop down your totems, which were like copies of your weapons. And so as soon as maybe when you're doing auto attacks, they're trying to do some auto attacks too or something.
They proc off. Yeah, see, that's why I'm trying to figure out how that way it would work, because the dancing rune things kind of reminds me that my mouse stuck. Oh, there it goes. Whoopsie.
Oh, Mimic, I was talking about, I think, a fighter primary, summoner secondary. So I could see a summoner primary, fighter secondary. They'd have some of the fighter augments on their abilities. But, a summon augment, maybe suddenly you're just making totems. I don't know. I'm excited for Bard.
Yeah.
That is
I think I'm more excited for Summoner as a secondary rather than a primary,
To see how it adds that extra flavor. Like, what's it gonna do?
right? For one, we don't know any of its augments,
Mhm.
but just because of some of the names, Song Caller, Blade Caller was the fighter summoner. I'm just imagining a warrior or a fighter doing its abilities, and then it just summoning a secondary sword or axe to mimic its abilities.
I know this would never happen, but imagine when you made a summon, you could upload any MP3 file you want to come in. Like, you just like, people who
Oh my god, I would have so much fun with
but
that.
just think about it like, oh god, it's Rack again, because all in the distance you hear, it's John Cena. And it's just like, my summon comes in, folding chair, just like it's God, I mean, you are gonna be able to aren't you able to make your own custom like guild emblems? So I think they've mentioned that you can have player made icons for your guilds, which to me sounds awesome. I can't wait to have a picture of my face on somebody else's guild because I sold it to
Be
them.
so pixelated.
Ooh, okay, so we
Um,
have Summoner. Oh, Summoner Masterclass. How dare you? I mean, shoot the messenger. And a
I'm
Mimic says a summon secondary. I was thinking about this. Perhaps a large beast that fights alongside you causes things like rends or bleeds or sunders. Interesting. It would depend on your primary archetype. I could see that. What's interesting is we were also talking earlier that like battle pets are a thing, and not like Neopets. Like these are battle pets. So essentially,
Neopets.
think of I know, right? That's a deep cut, Neopets. But
Oh,
essentially it's like horizontal progression. So you like if you we're thinking if you like you, the pet won't give you any more power. Like a summoner's pet will give you more power, as Tank mentioned before. But this battle pet that anybody can have will use some of your power and put it into this pet. And so it's been confirmed at least a couple of years ago that these were, but I have no idea how they fit into this because you were saying it sounds like hunter pets, but you kind of give some of your own power to have a battle pet. So I don't know what that would even be.
yeah, I mean, Steven had said, like, you sacrifice your power to give to the pet. And to me, like, even if like it doesn't make sense, because like, if something has, 100 physical mitigation and you're only giving like 10 of your physical power to this pet, he ain't gonna do any damage because and he's gonna mitigate most of it.
Hmm.
So that's yeah. That's why it's just like so weird on how they worded it. And I don't really know how it's gonna work. They haven't really touched up on it other when people ask. And he always gave the vaguest answers majority of the time, unless you ask very specific
Yeah.
questions.
So talking about giving your own power to your pet, I had the dumbest idea ever. What if I'm like a fighter with very low intelligence and I give my pet the rest of my intelligence? Can I just lose the ability to speak? And like when I type into chat, does it just all of a sudden just make random noises like
Zug zug.
or exactly, no, when I speak in VoIP because I have zero intelligence, it'll deepen my voice and slow it down so that everybody knows I have zero. That could happen. Um, it doesn't have to be damage. It could be CC on a pet. Fair. That's a good point, Tease. We had also
Oh yeah.
mentioned, because we were trying to brainstorm what these pets could bring to the table. Because, if you're a tank, do you really want to give some of your constitution to your pet, or do you just want it on you? So we're thinking, maybe you're that fire mage in the fire dungeon, and you can give 30% of your DPS to your pet, and it could do, ice or a different sort of elements damage. So
Physical, since you're made, you won't use physical damage.
oh, that's a good point too. What if yeah, I could see that. So, imagine your battle pet. You're a mage shooting fireballs. Your battle pet is shooting little frost bolts next to you. Maybe, whenever you cast fireball, it casts an ice bolt, and whatever your damage your fireball would have done, it is instead 30% of it is ice from your little pet guy. Oh. Or maybe converting some of your damage into damage over time. There's a lot of ways you can go with this.
Only Steven knows the answer.
Only Steven. And does Steven even know the answer? Yes. It was in the design
It's
doc
it's
since 1842. So
it's in his journal under his bed.
I would imagine that the design doc for this game was just passed down generation to generation of all the Sharifs. great great grandpa Sharif in Europe back in like the late 17th century or 1700s was just like, and there will be 64 archetypes when combined. Pet that acts like a shield blocking for you. Okay,
Oh, like if
there's
you're a
one.
healer or a mage, you give your constitution to your pet. I mean, it makes you weaker, but I mean, at the same time, your pet can tank the stuff for you.
As the sneaky thief, I'd probably like mages that would do that because then they'd be weaker. I don't know.
Sneaky, sneaky.
One of the things that's interesting is like, we were talking as well about, magic being occluded by objects. And so I could see one of the downsides and the upsides of having two different spells coming from two different places is you have more of a chance to hit from two different directions. But, there's the potential also that maybe, a tree blocks one of you, wouldn't have blocked, pets or something like that.
Now that actually, because you said that, now that's kind of something got in my mind. Is we saw magic healing abilities like they will go around trees and whatnot. So
Mhm.
does lightning and fireballs, but projectiles don't. So a ranger is actually more has to be more focused on line of sight versus a mage, where the mage's fireball might go around the tree rather than hit it.
Reminds me of that. What was that movie where they like bent the bullets? Remember that?
Wanted,
Was that like that just
wanted.
dumb movie? It was just like, like I'm imagining your mage just being like, fireball. Huh. That could be an interesting augment as well. Imagine you can change the radius in which your spell is going to be able to hit somebody. So it's like suddenly when you're like adding maybe a cleric augment to something, because you saw the cleric kind of moving that ability, like there was that heal ability that would follow people. I'll see if I can find it while I'm talking about it, but it would follow it. What if you could have a cleric augment that would allow that to happen to other spells, because suddenly that's adding utility, because you can hit somebody around corners better. I don't know, there's a lot of ways they could play this, especially with all the dials I think they have to turn.
One thing I'm really interested in seeing is like weather-wise, is how often extreme weathers are going to happen. Because I remember in the beginning, Steven said like if like a snowstorm occurs, right,
Hmm.
that you would have to have. I think he said like you would have to have frost protection to some degree to actually even go into the area for the time being.
I wonder
I
how.
don't know if that still holds true or
Yeah. Have we seen resistances at all? Because I could see two different ways of going in resistance. I could see like an armor style where the type of your armor dictates, how well you're going to resist an area. Like, maybe medium armor is good in like the cold or something. Heavy armor is not good in the cold because you're freezing. I don't know. Like, you could either go that direction and having colder, like elemental resistances, or you could go the normal, like you get +10 frost resist or something like that. So yes, mimic extreme weather will have an effect on combat. I'll see if I can bring it up. But there was even a stream
not
where
really.
Steven got unceremoniously doinked by lightning. It was hilarious. Like there was all of a sudden heavy rain. I know the idea is to have like, for example, a snowstorm might dampen fire effects, but a really, really hot day might dampen ice or water effects. And so there will be a random element to it, but my understanding, the idea is to make it so the weather does have an effect. So being that ice mage in a freezing area might be useful in some ways and not useful in other ways. Yeah, why not both? Good question. No, that's a good way of putting it. I hope
I
that we can
wonder if
change the weather. Imagine you can get like a couple mages together and like pull a few strings.
just go to the middle of the desert and start casting blizzard to make it cold.
What
Freeze
are
the
you
lake.
doing? I'm changing the weather. You see it just like a mage just casting blizzards into the sky. That is a fantastic dance.
So what you were talking about the lightning hitting Steven as an elemental or environmental hazard. One thing that kind of sounds interesting is if it's really cold blizzards, right? Maybe instead, because obviously you can't have like a random ice block hitting someone. What if like if you don't move, you get a stack, and if you don't move for too long, you freeze and take damage or die like Steven does.
Oh man. Because you know what the average MMO player does a really good job at? Not standing in
Standing
the
in the
fire. Oh man, it reminds me. I think there was a raid where you had to jump or move every once in a while, or you get stacks on you. Um,
And World of Warcraft, it was in the Nexus.
Ooh, Mimic brings up a good point. It makes sense to have people be able to change the weather. Multiple summoners can summon giant siege minions. Why not a spell for 10 mages to change weather conditions or allow a change in available resources? Dude, what if you could turn off the sun? What if you could make it night? You know, maybe there's an event you could do where you get to choose for the next 12 hours whether it's day or night. Like, we were talking about random events and like why you might want to do them or not. With if they build their systems right, you could do some really cool things. Maybe like when you were talking about that Minotaur versus Centaur fight. If you side with the Centaurs, maybe you can make it night. But maybe the other node wants to side with the Minotaurs
Yeah,
and makes it day. Like there's friction right there.
makes it rain. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of like constantly like throughout having to help different clans. Like one's a lightning clan, the other one's maybe like a fire clan of minotaurs, and depending on who you fight, you get to fight different bosses.
I like that. I hope that they add some like moral dilemmas too. I hope that I hope that the writing is written in a way where, siding with a side, maybe it's advantageous for you. Maybe that staff drops that you want, but they're just pieces of crap. Maybe they're cannibal centaurs that are trying to eat the other centaurs, but like they drop the staff. It's like I don't know. I hope that they have enough context in the game to make this more than just a let me look up on the wiki. What is what do I get from this? What do I get from that? Like they could have a bit of weight. And I could see these big overarching story
I mean,
quests adding stuff like
I can I can see just like random events and having instead of just being one stage where in the Minotaurs, you kill the Minotaurs and it summons their boss, and that's kind of like a one-stage dynamic event. But I
Mhm.
could see like a multiple, like a very, like we were saying, a big dilemma or a moral thing, right? Like say, like you're hunting, right, and you're killing all these rabbits in the area. Well, that's very beneficial for your node, but it's making the wolves in the area angry, and so that makes wolves end up being more aggressive. And then eventually you go kill the wolves because they're being aggressive because the town's saying, "Hey, wolves are being attacking us more." You go and kill the wolves. Now you made the mama wolf mad, and now the mama wolf comes out, and now it's like a whole like stage event, dynamic event, just because people wanted to hunt down these rabbits for
Wanted
their
to be Elmer
meat or their
Fudd and
feet.
just get all those wabbits.
It's rabbit season.
Yeah, man. I mean, that reminds me of what did they do? Didn't they like release a lot of snakes into like Australia or something, and then they became a huge issue, and then they released another animal to take care of those animals. Like it reminds me of like inevitably when people introduce an animal to an area to take care of another animal, then they have to take care of that animal. Then it just blows up the ecosystem.
I don't know about that, but I know there's two islands near Japan that did that. One's a cat island, and the other one's a rabbit island.
That's it. That's another one. Yeah. So it's like, they have a lot of space they can play with not only like what you're talking about triggering events, but the resource management system. Like, maybe if you're overkilling rabbits, you know, less things are gonna or then overkilling wolves, less things are gonna spawn for a while. You need to have your node management system take into place, just as if you had chopped too many trees. But if you kill that wolf boss, stuff's going to come back 50% faster. And so, something that's really important is that you always have places for players to just, congregate, places for events for players to take down. And so that's another opportunity. You could just be like, this is going to be good for the node if we can all take care of the big bad wolf. So
So when he was talking about land management, there was something he said that if you overdo it, it's going to slow the respawn rate of it. But if you do it too much, it may just stop altogether and start spawning somewhere else.
Mm.
Which got me thinking is I wonder if it would be possible to basically wipe out a node of all of its resources and nothing spawns.
I mean, that's some environmental fight. I mean, you know, that it's kind of cool to me
Uh,
because, as a PvP player in games like this, a lot of the times you feel like you have the power. You're fighting the other team, you're taking them out. But man, like, that gives a lot of power to PvP players when they can be like, a lot of trees you got there. Shame if a lot of people woke up at 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time when you're asleep and chopped all your trees down. Be a real shame, wouldn't it? And suddenly it's like, if you have if you have people that can cut down trees 3 times as quick, you're messing with another node. That is some environmental destruction. Also,
I
Subo Mimic said that it was, they released a ton of cats to take care of a rat problem. That's the cat island. So,
yeah. I mean, yeah, like that's gonna be like, especially when I don't think that's gonna happen early on. I think that's gonna be happen when nodes are starting to hit level 5 and 6, and then you would want to keep the resources in your nodes, not over harvest them, but you want to over harvest other nodes so to harm their products or their land. And
hmm.
it's gonna become like this huge land management war versus node wars. It's just gonna be like people invading other people's lands. Uh, I I like that elderberry that you guys got over there. Be ashamed. Like you
Yeah.
said, it'd be a shame if they all disappeared.
Be real
Or
bad
you
if you
got
woke up
some,
tomorrow and there was nothing.
or what was it? It was hemp in a new world.
Oh,
Like,
yep.
looks like you got a lot of hemp over there. I need my fishing poles.
Those
Need a
iron
crafting legendary
rocks,
fish pole.
But I think it'll be interesting to see how different nodes fight. Because if you have two very PvP centric nodes next to each other that are constantly butting heads, it's going to be a bloodbath. If you have
Oh
two
yeah.
PvE centered nodes next to each other that are fighting, is a lot of it going to be this node war? Is a lot of this going to be the node management war? Like, are you going to be constantly just trying to wipe out like their environment? Like, I don't know. It's an interesting thought that you have more avenues besides just PvP to impact it. So it has been about 3.5 hours for me. I think I'm gonna have to call it here. Um, I
Oh,
know, I know. It's been really great talking with you though, Tank, and thanks to everybody who's dropped in. Thanks for the
that's
host.
awesome. They got raided by lore.
I know, Laura, great group of people. Obviously, there was one person in this chat before they rated me, so that one person, give him a follow. uh, it might have been you actually who was in my chat, Tank. So
Um.
maybe.
Oh, I kind of like hopped. No, it was nasty. It was
Oh
nasty.
yeah,
Was
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
here.
yeah. But yeah, no,
I
we've been having some great talks recently, Tank and I.
I didn't
So
realize it was that long.
yeah, no, it's been a while. So I'm actually going to send the raid your way. I think I like slash raid, right?
Slash raid, and then you have to type in, I think, my full name, which you have to put the underscore technologist.
Oh,
Yeah, have fun with that. Uh, Twitch wouldn't let me just put a space
here we
bar
go.
like a normal person.
Thanks everybody. Appreciate you hanging out and following and whatnot.
It was great talking to
Oh,
you.
great talking to
Definitely
you
got
as
my
well.
mind off the. Oh my god! Thank you for the raid, Rock.
Oh
Oh
my
my
gosh,
god.
wow. And remember,
That's a fucking 50 DKP minus!
see you, man. Have a good night.
Could you like not stand there and stuff?
Oh, that's pretty good.
You
Yeah, have a
you
good
have a
one.
wonderful night, man.
Yep, bye.